present. And today, by the way, is August 3rd, 2023. Roll call, please. Here. Here. Here.
Here. Here.
Thank you, Mandy. Moving on to the adoption of the agenda. Board, do we have any questions or comments on the agenda overall as a whole? Okay, seeing everyone shake their head no. We're going to go out to public comment, see if there's any members of the public who would like to comment on the agenda as a whole, not pieces of the agenda right now. We're just talking about the agenda as a whole. Lewis, is there anyone online with their hand up? Okay, seeing none, and I don't see anyone here in person who's making their way to the podium. Mandy, can we have a majority vote, please? Or Josh, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, we have a couple of changes here to the agenda. Microphone. Okay, we've got a couple of changes to the agenda today. Consent item B, in the minutes, they reflected, now they're current, that currently reflect that Brian, Trustee Swanson was virtual and was present. On consent S, the MOU with Gateway Center of Monterey County, the amended agreement is included in your folders. It's available on the website and available for the public outside. We had a correction to the agenda on the public hearing approval for tentative agreement with PGTA. The recommended language was inadvertently left off of the cover sheet. That's been since amended. And then information item B, review of legal fees. We included last year 22-23 actuals in your packet, again posted on the website and out front for the public.
And that was info item B.
Info item B.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
And then we have under action F. That's the board calendar, future meetings. We have leadership associates recommending the change to candidate selection date. That will be discussed at that time from September 28th to October 2nd. That's all I have.
Thank you. I have that as well. Just because we are continuing to talk about this, I'm going to just ask Lewis if there's any member of the public online who has showed up and want to comment. Okay, thank you so much. All right, with that, can we get a majority, or can we get a motion, please, first, and then a majority vote?
I'll move to approve the agenda with the amendments and corrections.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion made by Clerk McNary, seconded by Trustee Otmar. Majority vote, please.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to closed session. This evening in closed session, we're going to discuss the following topics. Number one, negotiations, collective bargaining session, planning and preparation with PGTA for the 2023-2024 school year. Number two, negotiations related to collective bargaining session, planning and preparation with CSEA for the 23-24 school year. Number three, public employee discipline / dismissal / release / complaint. Number four, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, 2 cases. Do we have any public comment on closed session topics? All right, Lewis is showing that there's no one online wanting to comment on these items, and I don't see anyone here in public making their way up to the podium. With that, we will adjourn to closed session. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Pacific Grove Unified School Board, School District regular meeting, coming back into open session now at 6:35. Reporting out on closed session items. On item 1, negotiations related to collective bargaining session, planning and preparation with PGTA for 2023-24 school year. No information was given, as well as no direction. Item number 2, related to negotiations for collective bargaining session, planning and preparation with CSEA for the 23-24 school year. No information was given, as well as no direction. Item number 3, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, complaint. Information was received and direction was given. The last item, item number 4, is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, and has 2 cases within the item of number 4. One of the cases, information was received and direction was given. And the other case, the other case We had a voting, we voted on the item and the voting tally was a unanimous vote. And let's see, I'm sorry, we had acceptance of the action with a unanimous vote. So the board approved the settlement in the matter of OAH case number 20236060766. And the substance of the agreement, and Josh Jordan, I'm just going to ask you really quickly on this document, the substance of the agreement in the parentheses, may I read that? Thank you. In exchange for educational services and fees, OAH case number 2023060766. Let me read that again just to make sure I didn't do any errors. 2023060766 will be dismissed with prejudice and all educational claims against the district will be waived and received. And with that, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. Brian Swanson, will you lead us? Thank you all. Thank you, Brian. All right, the next part of our meeting comes to the communications part of our meeting. And first up is written communications. And this is where the board details out any written communications that they have received. So I'm going to go first. I have a list here. Board members, if you can be ready with yours, that would be appreciated. So first is I received an email regarding an invitation for the Walk of Remembrance, an email from the California Latino School Board Association regarding their conference, an email that was a follow-up on a previous board request, an email regarding item H, fiscal officer, which was an item on our June agenda, a Saturday choir follow-up, photos from Delray Oaks Pride flag raising, verbiage for potty learning in a parent handbook, 3 emails related to Juneteenth usage of the culinary kitchen, 1 email related to transitional kindergarten concerns, an email related to the Seaside Pride flag raising, Community Human Services board member orientation, an ask for a donation to the Schumann Heart House, email in favor of ethnic studies curriculum, an email related to superintendent search information and feedback, an email from the military school liaison related to naval support activities, an email from Community Human Services, an invitation for doing site visits, Monterey County School Board Association meeting invitation, an email related to a question or comment on consent item N for tonight's agenda, and I was copied on a media request email related to consent N on tonight's agenda. Board, I'm just going to go around and see if any of you have any additional. So Brian, Trustee Swanson?
Nothing additional. Thank you.
Nothing, thank you. Clerk McNary?
Nothing additional.
Thank you. And Trustee Hotmar?
Nothing additional.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you all. Next up, we have board member comments. And so we'll start tonight with Clerk McNary, please.
I don't have any comments tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Hotmar?
Nothing for me tonight. Thanks.
Okay. Trustee Brian Swanson?
A couple quick things. I wanted to give a shout out to Billy Mankey because I believe it's her last meeting in 16 plus years, right?
18.
18. So I mean, I think about, when a lot of us get to breathe a little bit during the summer, and that's when Billy doesn't. And that's when it's really kind of knuckle down, and this year especially, so many positions to fill. And for my years on the board, I think 8 now, or nearly 8, it's like she's always presented everything so thoroughly. And it's just been an absolute joy and pleasure to work with you. And you will be sorely missed, but I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. You just always had the district and the students at the forefront of what you do. And it's not lost on me, and I think everybody else in this room, that what you brought. So thank you for that. You bet.
Thank you so much, Brian. I don't think any of us could have said that better ourselves. I'm the last one left, so I just wanted to say really quickly, this is our first school board meeting technically of the new school year. So we're all kind of excited and looking forward to when the kids actually come back to school next week, August 9th. It was a beautiful sunny day today, and I actually kind of felt like the magic of first day of school kind of starting already. So just a shout out and thanks to support for all of the staff members who have been working over the summer, who have been able to take a break over the summer. All of our employees are scrambling right now to get things rolling, and I think I can speak for the whole board in saying that we appreciate them. And that is all I have for board member comments. Interim superintendent report.
Yeah, I'll just address the fact that we're starting our new school year next week. Everybody's really excited about that. We had new hire orientation today. There's a lot going on. We have our breakfast on Monday morning, which has not been in person for some time, I believe, since prior to COVID. So 7:30 to 9:30 over at the high school, we'll be having our welcome back breakfast. The Kiwanis will be doing pancakes. And on a personal note, I'm very happy to be here. This is a transformative and transitional year within this district, and I'm here to support this district and this board and these students and these families to the best of my ability as a community member and as a parent. So thank you all very much for your support and trust.
Thank you so much, Interim Superintendent Jorn. Throughout the meeting, you might hear us call you Mr. Jorn or Josh or Joshua. Is that all right with you? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, moving on. So next up in our meeting is the time of the meeting where individuals desiring to address the board can do so. You've got two different ways of doing so. If you're online, you can raise your hand digitally, and we have wonderful Louis Algazi watching for that, and he will let me know if anyone's raised their hand. And we also have a podium here in the center of the room. For anyone who's here in person, you would just need to make your way up to the podium. And if there's multiple folks, just get in a queue, and we will alternate between the folks here in person and the folks online. We really do want to hear from you. And I'm just going to read out a couple of guidelines, I will say, for the folks who would like to comment tonight. So public comment on any item of interest to the public that is within the board's jurisdiction will be heard. The board will also take public comment on each specific action item prior to board action. So what that means is if your item that you want to comment on is further down in the agenda, we will allow for public comment at every single one of those items. So this is the time to comment on an item that is not on the agenda at all. Any individual wishing to comment on a specific item on the current agenda are kindly asked to wait until that item is being discussed. The board will allow a reasonable amount of time for public comment on each agenda item, not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker and no more than 20 minutes per agenda item pursuant to board policy 9323. And with that, we're going to open it up first to Pacific Grove Unified School District staff who would like to comment on non-agenda items. And I see we have some staff who are making their way up to the podium, so that's lovely. And then Louis is keeping an eye on online folks as well.
Evening board.
Yes, please go
Thank
ahead,
you very
Director
much.
Rogan.
I am Director Buck Rogeman, the Director of Curriculum and Special Projects. And I just wanted to reinforce what Interim Superintendent Jorn said about our staff orientation this morning. The new hires are really excited to be part of this district, and it was so much fun to be there, welcome them, and to think back all those years ago when I was sitting in the same seat that they were. So that spirit of starting something new, and with the sunshine that we had this morning, it's one of those signs that the school year is about to begin. It's like we keep the fog in while the kids are out of school. They go back to school and the weather becomes beautiful. So it was a great morning, and the hires, the HR department did an incredible job staffing the district as they always do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Rogeman. And please feel free, if you can queue here or you can queue down the middle of the aisle, whichever you prefer. We've got a new kind of layout here in the boardroom this meeting.
It is.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's
please feel free.
Full frontal.
Yes, and there's a camera at the podium as well, so please continue. Yeah, go ahead, Director Martinez.
Hi trustees, I'm Barbara Martinez, Coordinator for Safety and Principal of Pacific Grove Adult School. I just want to give you an update of what's been happening with safety over the summer, moving into now in the fall. So this summer, Kimball and Associates, who we've contracted with, completed 2 of the 3 phases of the district site threat assessments. This included all site perimeter plus 1 mile radius assessments for ingress and egress to sites. They also completed the on-site infrastructure assessments to include interviews with two key staff at each site, and drone permits were granted to complete aerial assessments as well. This fall, in the coming weeks, they're going to conduct on-site interviews with staff at each site, which addresses the staff's top 10 concerns, strengths, weaknesses, observations, and threats to sites while school is in session, and an active killer response readiness analysis. And following these assessments, Kimball and Associates will assist the district in updating our site safety plans, which are due in March, and help updating our emergency operation plans. Yeah, the Big Five Trainer of Trainers series continues with MCOE, Safe School Coalitions. Yesterday, all site administration attended the 2nd county training focusing on reunification, lesson plans for teachers for elementary, middle, and high school related to Big Five and lockdown protocols. This morning, all new staff to the district were trained in Big Five. In the coming weeks, site principals will hold their site safety meetings, schedule parent safety nights so that our community is aware of our safety protocols as well. SRO Andrea Hill and Commander were also present today, who supported the presentation and the new staff coming in. Also want to give you an update on Narcan. We were approved for an additional standing order renewal for 800 doses of Narcan. New staff will be trained in Narcan and it will be distributed to sites when it arrives. Hopefully we can distribute during back to school nights, where we can have a computer stations where the parents can just briefly download the application of Narcan, and then we can distribute and get it in the hands of the community that need it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Martinez.
Hey, I'm a person that doesn't like my picture taken.
I'm sorry.
To see myself.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's
Can we
unnerving.
do a filter or something, but
There,
uh,
we heard your plea. Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
So just I have a few things. One is that I would like to acknowledge Karen Levy from Robert Down Elementary School. She is retiring, and after 35 years of service in the district, and it's amazing. She's an amazing teacher. She's going to be missed, and I'm sure we'll talk her into coming back and subbing, but it might be a little bit before we're able to do that. So I also wanted to thank all of our employees that worked all summer long to get schools ready for staff and students coming back. Our maintenance, operations, grounds department. You can go to any site and you can see the progress that has happened this summer. Also, our district office staff in particular, our HR staff that has worked tirelessly to get positions filled. And then they also, the team at the district office worked to get the new employee orientation put together for this morning. It was a successful event. I think everybody learned a lot, had a good time. It's important for us to let our staff members, our new staff, see the support people at the district office, because oftentimes it's an email or a phone call. They're not always coming in to see these people. So this, gives them that opportunity to see who is actually supporting all the staff out there, and them in particular as they are new to the district. So I felt very good about that today. And I want to welcome again all of the new employees to the district. I think we have a great crew coming in, and they're all very, very excited to get going and start their careers here in our district. Along with new employees, you know that our admin team has changed quite a bit. And so I wanted to just announce those new people to your administrative staff, remembering that the board and admin are a team together. Also, directing and supporting the district, right? So we have Angela Rodriguez, our fiscal officer in the district that was a confidential employee. And she has been moved into admin. She went to our admin retreat and she's been, slowly getting her feet wet and joining us in all the different meetings that happen for administration. We have Larry Hagquist, who has moved into the assistant principal role at the high school. And we have our new director of student services, Yolanda Cork Anthony, and she is in the back and you saw her in closed session today. We have our school nutrition director, Robert Silvera, and Robert Silvera is right here in the back. We have Miss Abby Arbrun, elementary Forest Grove principal. And we have our adult school coordinator, Kristen Arps. I'm not sure if Kristen is here. Okay, so Kristen is on Zoom. And then last but not least, I want to recognize Claudia Ariano. She's from South Monterey County. She will be replacing me as the HR director in the district. And I just want everyone to know how confident I am in her here at the district. She's the best fit we could have found. And she's an expert in school human resource compliance. And as I said earlier this morning, we've worked together now. Thank you, board, for our cross training for close to a month. And Claudia leads with integrity and with grace. So you're going to be in good hands. And I look forward to seeing all the great things that come forward in the future.
Thank you so much, Director Menke.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And just a quick check-in, Lewis, do we have anyone online, any PGUSD employees online with their hand up? Okay, seeing none, please continue, Principal Roach.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Sean Roach, proud principal of Pacific Grove Middle School. Hope you guys had a great summer. Just wanted to give you, excuse me, it's been a while since I've spoken into a mic. Just wanted to give you a couple of updates. First of all, having attended the management meeting, our new folks at the district level are just phenomenal. They're going to make us better and stronger, and we can learn a lot from them. So I welcome them, definitely. Number two, the last couple of days, we've had our registration roundup for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. They've had the opportunity to learn their schedule, practice their lockers, find out where the bathroom is, and all those kind of things. So it's been a really good thing for them to kind of lower that stress level before the first day of school. Last night, we hosted a parent boot camp for our 6th grade and our new students. And the parent boot camp really kind of consisted about how to navigate the technologies that we use at the middle school. One of the refrains that we had, a couple of the refrains that we had was, it's a really important time for parents to gently kind of step back from their kids and allow their kids to mess up if they need to, because middle school is a perfect time to do that. So that was one of the refrains that we had. And another one is really having them partner with us at the middle school. And I have to give props to our TOSA, Bryce Gamble, who really led the technological component. We taped it. We put the captions in Spanish so that everybody could get it. The attendance was phenomenal between the online folks and the in-person folks. We had about 80 to 85, which is amazing. It was a really good night, and then we had about a 30-minute Q&A session, which really turned into a learning opportunity for everybody. So it was a fun night, something we're definitely going to put on the annual docket, and can't wait to get this school year ready. Thanks.
Thank you, Principal Roach. I have a quick question for any parent who's listening. If they haven't started getting emails from their site yet, does that mean that their child perhaps is not registered, or what would you guide them to do on that?
Register your student.
Make sure you're registered. So
Absolutely.
email the site office manager for each school. Like if
if you were to go to the pgmiddle.org website, it'll guide you exactly how to do that and all the, and if they need additional help, or if there's a hiccup or anything like that, definitely give us a call.
Okay.
I think we're down to like 8 students though. It is way better than in years past.
Oh,
and so
okay.
that allows us to generate schedules, get everybody
Yes.
acclimated as far as their lockers. So it's gone.
It's a
really,
win-win. Yeah.
It's absolutely a win.
Okay. So if parents haven't seen emails yet, they should have, and there may be a glitch. So they should just check in with the school.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes. And don't let it go too long.
Don't
Give
let
us
it
a
go
call.
till the 9th. Okay. Thank you so much. And Assistant Principal Hagquist. Hi.
Hello. board members, I would just like to say I'm very excited to start the school year. 25 years already in the district. This is my 26th year, and I've never felt like such a newbie. So I'm starting fresh. I wanted to say thank you to Lito Garcia, our principal. I just couldn't be more fortunate to be working under a principal that has had so much experience. He's a taskmaster. He's so efficient, and he takes time to help me out as I learn. So super appreciative of that. Also, we've been on site for several weeks now, and just want to let you know that there are teachers that are already in their classrooms getting things ready, even though our start day is tomorrow. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all those hardworking teachers and say thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, and we have one more in person. Lewis, is there anyone online at this time?
Am I supposed
Looking
to
to speak.
press anything here?
You know, as long as this little ring is green on the
Okay.
mic, you're good.
Good. So Claudia Arellano, new director of HR. And I just want to say thank you, Billy, for those kind words. And thank you for allowing the cross training. I could not agree with you anymore. She leaves some big shoes behind for me to fill, and I will try my best to do everything that I can to continue with the great work that she's done for the district and continue to support the staff who are our greatest asset that we have. I had the opportunity to attend the new employee orientation. No, I did not take any credit for all the great work that the department did this year. In fact, I tried to convince Billy to stay and do a job share with me. I told her, you can take from January through June and I will do the rest, but she's still not convinced. So I'm happy to be here and super excited, and I look forward to a great year with all of you.
Thank you so much, Director Ariano. Okay, so it looks like we're closing up our PGUSD staff comments. Are you a staff member, sir? You look so familiar to me. Okay, so just one moment, you're in the right spot. And Lewis, is there anyone online waiting? Okay, thank you. So now we're going to transition into our community members who would like to address the board on non-agenda items. And it appears that we have one person here who would like to do so. So feel free to make your way to the podium.
Can I raise?
Sure.
So the consent.
Oh, go ahead and speak in the microphone and our Mr. Jorn is our secretary as well as our parliamentarian of the board meeting, so he will answer your point of order question. Go ahead, Mr. Jorn.
Can I have the background view also?
Sure, yeah, Lewis.
Sorry,
We
I'm
have-
just shy. That's
It's okay, go ahead.
So the question is, point of order, can we not public comment on the consent calendar before the vote is taken? And I'm not sure who I'm
Do you want me
addressing.
to
Is that-
answer it, Mr. Jordan? Okay, sure. So so it's a great question, and for anyone listening, so consent is the next item on our agenda. What will happen is we will talk about it as a board. And as you see on the agenda on page 5, there will be board comments and questions. And then directly after that, there'll be public comment.
Right,
And at that time is when you'll be able to
so
make
you've
a
see. Already
comment.
voted.
No, we have not voted.
Oh,
It's
I
not-
see.
We're
Okay,
not at that point
sorry.
of the agenda yet.
Okay. so you-
Hasn't happened.
All right.
You're
Thank you.
thinking into the
Thanks.
future. No problem. So any other community members who would like to speak now, anyone online, raise your digital hand. Anyone in person would want to address us on non-agenda items. Okay, Lewis is letting me know that there isn't anyone online who is asking to speak, and it doesn't look like we have anyone here in public who wants to speak on this part of the agenda. So what we're going to do now is move on to the consent agenda part of the agenda. And so first, what we're going to do is we're going to go around to the board and we're going to ask for any board comments or questions on consent. And so who we're going to start with is Trustee Otmar.
I have no comments, but I do have some that I'd like to pull. Would you like me to do that now?
Yes, absolutely. And go slow and I will make a note.
I'd like to pull consent item H,
Okay,
N, and V.
H, N, and V. And so H is ratification for out-of-county overnight activities.
Correct?
Okay, N is contract for services with Monterey County Office of Education.
Correct.
And V is contract with Positive Behavior Supports Corp for 23-24.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you so much. Trustee Brian Swanson.
No comment and nothing to pull. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Trustee, Clerk McNary.
Nothing additional for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm just going to review my notes really quickly to see if I have anything to pull. I do not. Okay, so at this time, we're going to go out for public comment. And sir, if you would like to comment during for anything on consent, this is the time, and we welcome and warmly welcome you to step up to the mic and make a comment. And anyone else online either can raise their hand digitally. So we will wait here for any public comment related to any consent item.
Ask a question of clarification.
Sure, as long as you get to the mic, sure.
Sure. What does the word pull mean? Means pull it off the consent agenda?
Yes,
So it's no longer on the consent agenda.
what will happen is the item will be pulled from consent and moved into action. And before we approve the motion for this,
Yeah.
we're in the process of generating the
Got it.
motion.
Thank you.
We will let you know. Yes, of course. Any other questions? And we welcome these really good procedural questions. So if you have one, please don't be shy. Please come and ask. And Louis, is there anyone online? No one online. And gentlemen, did you want to ask a procedural question? I say, okay, no worries. Okay, so at this time, we have a board member who would like to pull items N, H, and V. So what we need to do is make a motion and include those items to be, or exclude, I should say, those items from consent so that we can move those. And I would recommend that we move them directly to. Sorry, I thought I heard somebody saying something in the audience. I recommend we move them to directly after we approve the consent agenda. So you know what? With that, I'm going to make a motion. I'll make the first motion and somebody can second it. So I make a motion that the board approve our consent agenda, omitting items N, H, and V and placing them directly after our consent agenda vote.
I'll second your motion.
Thank you. Motion made by Carolyn Swanson, seconded by Clerk McNary. Majority vote, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. So now what we have in front of us is items N, H, and V. And they're not in alphabetical order, but as I mentioned them in my motion, I mentioned them in that order. So that's what we're going to follow. So right now we're going to open up item N, and Trustee Otmar, you pulled that. So please go ahead.
This may take a little bit of time, so I don't know if, do you want to still do it in that order?
Sure. I think so. Yeah.
I just had some general questions about equitable grading. So if there's somebody here that could, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. All right.
Okay, great. So we've got Principal Roach making his way to the podium, and Mr. Jordan, I think we also have someone online.
Right. We have Rod Garcia from the Monterey County Office of Education. Louis, can you verify?
I saw him earlier.
Fire away.
Thank you. So I went online to do a little bit of research about equitable grading because as I looked at this consent and it seemed extremely general. I understand that we're just approving the $500 presenter fee. But I couldn't find anything solid about what equitable grading is and what it looks like or what it will look like in PGUSD. So I wondered if you could expand on that and just kind of give some examples of what that would look like for us.
Absolutely. And a Google search would probably yield quite a bit. And so
Well,
I can
looked
understand.
specifically at PGUSD, and I saw two presentations. One was from a vendor, and then the other one was one that Director Rogeman had put together. And I still kind of struggled to find like a solid explanation of what it was that we were kind of looking at.
For sure. So as you know, the district's goal and vision is equity in education and equity for all. And so the specific title of what we're going to be studying is Grading for Mastery, Equitable Practices in Support of Student Success. So it really deals with effective feedback in student achievement. It causes us to kind of reflect on how we assign grades and all those factors that come in it. We assess our grading systems across different levels, implement strategies to enhance accuracy, specificity, and the timelessness of our grading. We incorporate new technologies to streamline and enhance the grading process. And it's really a reflective thing on the teachers. And so it's really taking every extraneous thing, every subjective component out of grading and really focuses on grading the student based on mastery and content. And so it is far and away the most effective and accurate means of grading for students. At this point, we envision this as being a reflection, a touch point, something that we want to begin thinking about and discussing. But also to continue that conversation as we share and kind of reveal things about one another and things that might influence grading that really don't have to do specifically with student achievement. We really want to focus on what the student knows. And really, this is going to lead us to the most accurate way to see what a student knows.
And can you give specific examples of what ways you'll do that? I mean, it sounds very objective. So if we're not using something that's subjective, I guess I'm struggling with how do you understand if the student has mastered a subject if there aren't objective marks that they're meeting?
Well, that's it. We would focus on the objective marks that they're meeting. So an example would be if you were to grade a class of essays, and you were to remove the grade of the names of the students on those essays and grade purely on what is written and what is mastered, that is equitable grading.
With the assumption that looking at the name, the teacher would somehow assign a different grade based off of who that student was?
It causes us to examine our own influence and what lens we look through. And it really kind of refines what we're looking at specifically, which is student grading. So all the extraneous things. There's a number of examples and kids come into classes with a number of things that are going on, and it really allows us to kind of push that to the side, knowing that we are a link in the K-12 chain and allowing that student to really firmly know where they are in their learning and begin to build some goals for them throughout the year and continue on. Like I said, it just takes everything extraneous out of the grading and really has you focus specifically on the learning and what the student can produce and master at that point. And that really gives you a more informed decision about what you need to do for that student or that population as you move forward, is really to focus on where that student is at that point and continue on. It really just, it takes all the subjective things out of grading and really focuses on, like you were saying,
The objective.
The
Okay.
objective.
Do you have
Yes.
other examples of what the grading would be based off of? You mentioned essays. So one of
It
the
would
things I
be-
was reading was that homework and work ethic and in-class participation would not
attendance.
be.
Exactly, because what that does is that fluffs up a grade. It muddies sometimes where we know a student is.
Struggling with this right now because work ethic, I'm having a hard time believing that a work ethic and in-class participation muddies anything. I mean,
It really severely focuses on what the student can do. And our job is to diagnose successes and challenges on what a student can know so that we can employ strategies to strengthen that specifically. There's nothing to say that hard work isn't a wonderful thing. It absolutely is. But to use a subjective measure like that in grading might not necessarily give us the most accurate read on what a student can do and not give us the roadmap about where we need to go to help that student improve.
So can you offer some more examples of what mastery would be, a subjective idea?
Another one that ties to UDL would be allowing student choice in how they demonstrate their mastery. And so when we went to school, it was a Scantron, it was an essay or something like that, which does not hit all the learners that we're talking about. So by differentiating the way that they can demonstrate mastery, we're allowing them their choice so that they can choose the best avenue in which they can demonstrate their mastery. The entire thrust behind this is to get a more accurate, clear read about what a student can do so that we can do our job and grow their learning.
Okay. Is there something that you can offer that is sort of a game plan or a play-by-play, what that looks like in real time for a teacher in the district? So if I'm teaching, let's say history, or is this all subject matter? So math and.
The training would be for that, yes. And then we also, our equity site goal is to use rubrics instead of grades. So for rubrics, we're really looking at a student's mastery solely, and we're bringing that student into the thought process so they can reflect on their learning and they can see growth that is not necessarily tied to points. It's more about
Okay.
what a student can do.
I guess I'm really looking for something that's solid. Like I was saying, maybe a game plan, a play-by-play. What does this look like for math? What does this look like for history? What does this look like for a teacher that's teaching and there's a student that wants to, I mean, I'm guessing now, but one student wants to test on paper, another student wants to maybe put on an expressive play that, I don't know, now I'm grasping, but is there something that you can offer that really gives hard examples as to what this is?
Well, what you just, excuse me, what you just described was universal design for learning. And that's a training that we've done where they pick the avenue that best represents how they can demonstrate their mastery. I think at this point, it's really looking at removing external barriers to learning in the classroom and really giving them the opportunity to demonstrate what they know. I know there's a gentleman online that can go into greater depth on it, but it really gives the school the ability to really know where a student is, as opposed to looking at a grading scale and saying that a student comes in with an 80 when maybe they are not as capable as that grade dictates. So it really allows us an opportunity to see definitely where a student is or gets us closer to that goal so that we can do our job and improve that learning and continue to monitor that student. I think the rubric component is good because a student throughout time will see their improvement and they'll also reflect on areas that they can improve on. The feedback from teachers is powerful. It's much clearer and specific than just a test where you got an 85 or a 95, because the learning tends to stop when you do that. But if you are here at this point, that journey still continues. Does that make sense?
It does. I think that I do better with it if it was in front of me and I could read something and have an example of it.
Yeah.
I have some other concerns.
Trustee Otmar, do you mind if we actually go to the MCOE individual, the representative who's zooming in? They may be able to help with your questions as well. Would that be okay with you?
Yes, can I just make 2 more points
Of
and then
course.
maybe he can take those?
Sure.
One of the things I was concerned with is that the discussion of homework and in-class participation and that not being taken into account goes against what our board policy is. And so those don't mesh. So that brings concern to me because they're not in line. The other piece that I'm concerned with is if this is something that will continue through high school. I mean, we all know that life doesn't stop after high school and our students are going to go on to college. And if the expectation is that, work ethic or participation, those things are not important. And then they go off to a university, they're going to have a very stark and rude awakening because it's competitive. I don't want to trap our kids in a bubble,
Right.
and release them out of the bubble. And all of a sudden we've done them a disservice. So I feel uncomfortable.
No, I get that. Let's not say that what we're intending to do is devaluing hard work. If anything, it's really empowering the student to understand where they are in their learning.
Well, when
and
you say
begin
work
to-
ethic does not count toward a grade, it does devalue that. That to me is what it feels like. This is why I'm saying if I can't find information, I'm kind of left to make assumptions. And all of this came from a simple 2-hour training. And I feel a little bit like I feel a little blindsided.
Okay.
To be honest. And I'm not trying to be rude and I hope it's not coming off that way. I just want to kind of express what I think a lot of other people might be wondering about.
Can I jump in really quick?
Please.
So first and foremost, we're not bringing forward full implementation of said practices right now. This is simply a professional development to explore this concept with our teachers. So I want to be very clear, maybe we weren't about that.
It's implementation is the implementing equitable grading in the classroom. So it sounds to me, it's the beginning of implementation.
Right. And this is the professional development that's being presented and I'd love to have Rod Garcia jump in because he is an expert as it relates to this matter, but I do want to be clear. This is not something that the district right now is taking as an initial move away from our grading policies. This is something that we are entertaining the possibility of, and we're starting now at the middle school level because it was requested.
Well, and it's also, at this point, it's a reflective process. So this is where teachers begin to kind of reflect on their practice. They take a look at how their grades are comprised and how their students do from year to year. And they need to audit kind of how we're doing things currently and see if we're serving students the best way we can serve them.
Could we have Rod? I know Rod's on. Is there a possibility we could have him jump in and give us a quick summary of what the content he plans to deliver?
Yes, and thank you, Louis. Louis has turned on his video, so we'll just hear from Rod in just one moment. Anytime you're ready, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, PGUSD board. And thank you.
I'm
Louis.
sorry, Mr. Garcia, we can't hear you. One moment, and we'll see if it's either on your end or ours.
Testing.
Okay, one moment, Mr. Garcia. It looks like it's on ours. Ready now? Try it.
Testing.
You're on.
Perfect. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight, PGUSD board, and thank you for giving me the controls to interact. I was trying to actually respond to you, Superintendent Jordan, when you're like, "Are you here?" I was here. I couldn't respond. But to speak more frankly to the 2-hour training that's happening on Friday, the professional development is really to emphasize to the teachers just an understanding of what grading for mastery is, so that we could create meaningful feedback structures and supports to help them really provide meaningful feedback to their students so that they could reach their full potential, right? And just as Principal Roach was reiterating, it allows the students to be active roles in their learning goals, or be active participants in their learning as they're getting meaningful feedback loops from their teachers. And the training, it's only 2 hours. It really is going to examine some of the teachers' own grading practices and allow them to be reflective upon when it is appropriate to give feedback to the students to really elicit this deeper learning that Principal Roach is talking about. It's a method that they could use across subject matters, because it's about building meaningful feedback loops and feedback structures of support to help every student reach their full potential and really grasp the core concepts and skills.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Trustee Otmar, you brought up a point where you were saying that board policy conflicts with a part of the description, and I would like to dive into that because as policymakers, that is very important to me and I believe the rest of the board. So Interim Superintendent Jordan, do you have any response to that? Do we need to come back and bring it back next time?
I can reference
Okay.
the policy if you're interested. It's Board Policy 5121. And I can read it. It says grades should be based on impartial, consistent observation of the quality of students' work and their mastery of course content and objectives. Students shall have the opportunity to demonstrate this mastery through a variety of channels such as classroom participation, homework, tests, and portfolios. Board Policy 5121.
Okay, so Trustee Otmar, if I'm understanding correctly, you're reading a policy that says we're basing grades on, among other things, homework and work ethic and et cetera, and class participation. And then you feel like you're hearing that we're going to do, that we're going to take resources to kind of, I don't want to say negate the policy, but that contradicts. You feel it contradicts.
And,
Okay.
and specifically, this came from an email, equitable grading strategies measure how well students understand the instructional material without penalties for factors such as behavior, work ethic, homework, and in-class participation.
Okay, thank you. That's clear to me, at least what the concern is. So thank you so much. At this point, we're gonna go around to the board and see if they have any comments on this so far, and then we'll go out to the public and receive public comment on it, okay? So Trustee Otmar, thank you. Thank you so much. We're gonna move on. Trustee Brian Swanson, any questions or comments?
So when would we actually, this is supposed to actually start tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
It is.
so if we're pushing it, then it's not. My only thought on this again is that we're just, as I understand it, we're investigating this. We're having somebody present, so we're not changing anything.
No
We're just
policy
taking a
change.
look
Yep.
at
Yep.
something. So, I mean, I'm still in favor of moving forward, just as we're examining how we educate our kids. And here's an opportunity to take a different look at things but we're not upending anything yet. We're just spending $500 to take a look at.
Well, and it's also, I think it's an important thing for a staff to do at least on an annual basis is to
Yes.
review what they do, how they do, and is that serving people the best it is. And that's what this process is.
Yeah.
This process is it's going to be reflective. It's going to result in conversation. It could result in change. Is this going to be a change in policy that with board policy? Absolutely not. We don't know that yet. But we definitely want to explore avenues in which we can be better and serve our kids better. 100%.
So yeah, so all due respect, it's like, again, it's like we're not changing anything right now. We're just examining how we might be able to do better, how we might
And
change
learning.
things to do better,
Mhm.
but we're not upending anything at this point.
But if what we're doing is contrary to our board policy, then that's not something that we should be bringing into the classroom right now, I think, until we investigate further. Because I think that was pretty,
Well, and I
it
get
seems
what-
really specific.
I get what you're saying, but again, we're not implementing anything yet. We're not changing board policy and we're not putting anything into action that goes against board policy.
The purpose is implementing equitable grading in the classroom, though.
But right now, we're just examining, we're taking.
We are learning. We're learning about things that we don't know so much about right now, and we're ascertaining whether or not they make us better educators.
Thank you, Principal Roach. Clerk McNary, comments, questions?
Thank you for raising the conflict about the board policy. I think that's worth looking at. Principal Roach, can you tell us how this training was selected?
We spent quite a bit of time with cultural proficiency, and one of the avenues that we studied within cultural proficiency is our grading practices. And are they fair? Are they supporting our most struggling students? Which caused me to kind of think, along with our equity team and kind of throughout the district, an examination of how we grade students. And are we doing, and looking at that data, not only for middle school, but high school and elementary as well, to ascertain, are we serving our kids well? Are they thriving? Are they doing the best? The grading systems, I think that should be something that we always continue with different curriculums. Okay, we're always trying to do better for our students, and an examination of our grading systems to see whether or not we're doing the best for our kids, I think, is a natural part of this. So our initial step is just to kind of learn more about equitable grading in the classroom, to see, for us in a reflective manner, to kind of take a look at how we grade kids. Is there anything that's affecting them? How can we provide them with more support? That's really what this is all about.
I guess another way I see it, looking at it, is potentially removing barriers for students.
Absolutely. That is our goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't have anything further.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, let's go out to the public, and we, as I mentioned several times earlier, but I'm going to say it again. Anyone online who would like to speak, please raise your digital hand. If there's anyone here in public, thank you so much for queuing up. We're going to alternate in person and online. And so I see folks in person right away. So AP Hagwes, please. You've got the floor.
So last year I was a TOSA at Pacific Grove High School, and one of the things I did as a TOSA is I worked with the instructional leadership team. It was basically a team of teachers from every department to try to help implement effective practices and really help teachers reflect on our pedagogy and share best practices in order to get better. one of the things that we did was we did a book study that this is really 2 years long of a book called Grading for Equity by Joe Feldman. And we all read the book. And in my 25 years at the high school, I feel like it was the most comprehensive actual book study that we've ever done. We took a very methodical approach to trying to understand what is a very, very important question. And that is, what is equitable grading? What does it mean? Right. And one of the problems that we have, I think, in our current culture is that people start to make assumptions right away about what it is without really diving in and understanding it. And sometimes when we dive in to try to understand, we feel more confused. It's a sort of disequilibrium that helps us to grow, right? And so what we did when we read the book together is that we dialogued about some very challenging questions that people had some strong feelings about. And those dialogues helped us to be a little bit more vulnerable about our own practices. Some of the suggested strategies for equitable grading that came up were things like weighting more recent performance. So if a student doesn't do well at first, but suddenly performs really well on the final, do all of the poor grades at the beginning of the semester, should they be impacting the grade when the student is showing mastery on, let's say, a final exam? Grades based on individual achievement, not group. Sometimes we work in groups and different students participate at different levels in the group, but the whole group gets the same grade. So we talk about like how that impacts our grading practices. Things like grades being required based on required content, not extra credit. Are there teachers out there who maybe haven't been grading regularly, or have gotten busy and suddenly they've got a student that's far behind and not recognizing that and give a bunch of extra credit?
I'm sorry, AP Hagwis, that's 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Lewis, is there anyone online? Okay, seeing no one online who would like to comment, we're going to go to the next person in person. Oh, the queue has gotten.
Public or for the?
This is for the public. You're welcome
Okay.
to
right.
comment. And just so you know, the device that's on the podium there with the, looks like the stoplights, it'll start at green and then warn you with a yellow, and then red will be your 3 minutes.
Very good.
Thank you so much. And please state your name if you don't mind.
Yes, I'm a part of the PG community. I appreciate the opportunity to voice my opinion about consent item N, and I appreciate the explanations, which I've learned something tonight, a little bit more about what the word equity means, at least to the PG Unified School District.
Bless you.
This item involves approval for staff, as been discussed. I do believe equity grading is a mistake for PGUSD. Not only are we changing the grading criteria to satisfy a perceived social injustice, but we are adding another social or socio-political charge responsibility on our wonderful teachers. Equity grading is ultimately cynical. It incentivizes all of our kids, not only those students who routinely work hard and receive good grades, but those students who are perceived as equity lacking. These kids are being subliminally programmed to feel disenfranchised, that systemic oppression is real, that privilege and microaggressions are constant threats that will face as they grow up, that social justice, anger, rage, equity, and safe spaces are appropriate ways to deal with life, and that they will need government help in being who they are and who they aspire to be. How about preparing our school kids for the amazing opportunities that this country and life in general offer? Opportunities such as hard work, teamwork, self-regulation, optimism, independence, self-worth, family responsibility, determination, service, respect, gratitude, freedom of choice, freedom of speech, freedom of worship, civic duty, law and order, rule of law, private property, free enterprise, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It seems like these values have been upstaged in our children's education in favor of a more pessimistic and ominous message. We all want to see disadvantaged youth be successful. We all want educational assistance for learners with disabilities. We all want the end of bullying and discrimination. We all support our teachers and want them to be paid more. But anything to do with equity is ultimately disincentivizing and capricious. We must keep the focus on education, not on whatever social or political debate happens to be whirling around us at the time. Please disapprove the staff training for equitable grading in the classroom. It is a cynical perspective on the educational excellence and potential of both our teachers and our youth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, community member. Louis, is there anyone online? Okay, there's no one online who has their hand up. Next up, we have Director Rogoman. You have your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good
so
evening,
much.
trustees. Buck Rogoman, the Director of Curriculum and Special Projects. Just wanted to clarify a couple things with regard to the board policy, especially regarding class participation and homework as it applies to the grading for mastery. It's not that those things can't be counted. It's just that when you're looking at classroom participation, you're going to be, as a teacher, reflecting upon the way that you grade for classroom participation in your present practice. If your present practice is you kind of take a subjective gauge of how much a student talked in class and you're giving a participation grade on that, what you are doing is the students that might be a little bit more shy, that might be an English language learner, who wouldn't feel real confident speaking up in a class, wind up suffering under that kind of a grading system. Whereas a classroom participation is going to be based more on a task that is assigned during class and the level at which someone engages in that task and then has a task that they can show for that work. That kind of classroom participation shows mastery of the standard as opposed to being a subjective measure. The same kind of thing with homework. If homework is going to be something that still has a tie to objectivity rather than being something like a worksheet that students can fill out, and then if they haven't filled it out, they can quickly copy someone else, that's not going to be a real accurate homework grade either. So teachers can reflect on the kind of homework that they're assigning and the kind of grade that's going to be attached to that. And then finally, once again, this is training that's going to instill a reflective practice among our staffs and really see if what we're doing is grading students on the standards that were charged by the state of California to teach our students, or if there are subjective measures that are coming into play that are affecting the grade that we're giving students. So what we want to do is make it as objective as we can, and then also empower those students who have those skills such as hard work. So what you're talking about are the study skills that you need to have when you get to college, right? You got to organize your schedule so you get to class on time. You want to put in the hard work outside of the classroom so that you can perform on the 2 midterms and a final that you're going to take in college, right? So those are the kinds of things that would happen when you're grading for mastery as opposed to chasing points. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Rogoman. Louis, anyone online with their hand up? Okay, I don't see anyone either. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Next person in the queue. Okay, thank you so much.
Hi, I'm David Henderson. I'm an emeritus professor of economics, Naval Postgraduate School, and I've been an educator for 40 years. One of the things I always did was give homework so that they could track their progress. We heard a lot about tracking progress. That's one of the main ways you do it. And if you want them to do it, you have to make it count. Moreover, as educators, we aren't just trying to get mastery. That's the main thing we're trying to get, I agree. But we're also trying to get responsibility. And so if people don't do homework, that shows a lack of responsibility right there. I have not read Feldman's book, but I did look at some quotes from Feldman's book. And one of the things he said is that retake should be available whenever a student wants to improve his or her performance. That's crazy. I taught at Santa Clara University in 1980-81. And I had a young woman come to me after a test and say, "When's the retest?" I said, "There isn't one." But then I thought, well, I should at least find out why she missed it. She was honest. She had gone surfing. I don't think that taught, I think by hanging tough, I taught her responsibility. Now, the one thing I did hear Principal Roach say that I agree with, I don't know how you do it in a class of 20 or 30 people, because you start to recognize handwriting. My father was both a teacher and a principal in the Manitoba education system. And in grades 11 or 12 and 12, we had what were called departmental exams, where tens of thousands, well, 20,000 students at one time wrote the same exam. And people graded them after the fact who weren't even from that school, and they didn't see the name. I think that's a great idea. I'm not sure it applies when you got 30 students and you start recognizing writing styles. I also noticed that Principal Roach talked about implementation. I'm glad, Ms. Otmar, that you did emphasize that, because it isn't just, is this a good idea? It does say implementation, and that means something. It means implementing. And so I think we should be very careful about that. Now, this is something that someone said, Feldman said, so if he said it, I think this is crazy, but maybe he didn't say it. But that is that students who cheat in assignments or tests should not receive any grade penalties, since in Feldman's view, grades should reflect only a student's knowledge, not their ethics, effort, attitude, or behavior. Now, I don't know if he said that, but if he said that, that's awful. Because as teachers, as educators, we are trying to model a certain ethic. And it's very important that people learn that cheating isn't a good idea.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Thank you
Thank
for respecting the time. Thank you. Louis, anyone online? Thank you so much. Next up in the queue. Hi.
Good evening, board members. I'm a PG parent of a middle schooler, and I don't believe that applying equity grading is the solution to students that are falling behind. And I think that's probably primarily the reason why this is trying to be implemented. Instead, the district should be focused on offering help to students and provide their parents information about those resources as well. The concept of heightening grades for those students to provide raised self-esteem is only going to last so long, until the young adults enters the workforce or seeks higher education. Essentially, kicking the can down the road will further increase the chances of failure later in life. Regarding the program's no more zeros for missed assignments and no deadlines will not equip young minds for the reality of the workforce. The notion that a student can have unlimited retakes if they want to improve their performance will not be manageable for the staff and detrimental to execution of timely learning milestones. If the program is preventing a student from working hard to achieve the goals, then what message are we sending to an entire generation? Many school districts around the country that have implemented this neo-Marxist program are now trying to undo this problem that has been exacerbated. Many skills, such as the ability to study for a higher education, will be left behind for students that were able to just get by without too much effort. Students that are not considered minorities will feel demotivated. Why would an individual work so hard when a race-based preferential bias is attributed for certain groups? Poor academic performance all around will be the result of this implementation. So I ask the board to re-examine the need for this program and instead concentrate on providing additional help to those students that need it. Also, we need, as a community, to re-engage retired teachers or other members of the community in providing pro bono tutoring for families that cannot afford such support. I have helped in that capacity myself in the past, and it is quite rewarding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, community member. Louis, is there anyone online waiting? Thank you so much. Principal Garcia.
Lito Garcia, principal of Community High School and PG High School. So our school, as Dr. Hagwa so eloquently stated earlier, did a book study, Grading for Equity. It's an incredible book. And if you would like copies, board, we'll get you copies. I vehemently disagree with the people who have just gotten up here to speak against this. What we are doing as leaders of our schools is creating an opportunity for all of our students and all of our teachers to be better at what they do. That's it. Your job is to support us. We vet everybody that we bring forward for contract approval. We've done our work. We've done our due diligence. Stand by us. Do the right thing.
Thank you, Principal Garcia. And Louis, is there anyone online waiting? No? Okay, next person in line, please.
Good evening, board. My name is Carol Marquardt. And my daughter went all the way through Robert Down Middle School, high school. I'm a grandparent, senior citizen, but I do play golf at the PG golf course. And I don't think I could talk I'm not being snarky, but I don't think I could talk the ladies at my golf club into equitable scoring. Based on my income, my race, my age, and my enthusiasm. And I can't get unlimited mulligans. They would kick me off the golf course. Okay, so that's just one thing. Equitable grading is the antithesis of the things that Benjamin Franklin spoke up about. And it is a byproduct of the diversity, equity, and inclusion movement, which is fast drawing a sharp backlash in this country, as you read the newspapers. And that's the DEI movement is a ripple effect. Well, the ripple effect is a decision that the Supreme Court made that about the action of college admissions where they give racial preferences. It is unconstitutional. And the primary mission of PGUSD is to educate and not to promote racial balancing. So I know I sound like an old fogey, but Benjamin Franklin was right about the work ethic, and he helped build our nation. And I think we're getting away from that. Your job is to educate students and not to do racial balancing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marquardt. Louis, thank you so much, Louis. Next in line.
Erica Chavez. I teach kindergarten at Robert Down. I also have a 7th grader and will have a high schooler. And I can just say I don't golf, but as a wife of a golfer, I do believe that golf actually levels the playing field with strokes, and it's called a handicap. On another note, I'm really excited as an early childhood educator that, no offense to my upper grade colleagues, that you're finally doing what we've done in early childhood forever, which is give them the time to develop and show what they know when they get there. If I tested the kids in October and they couldn't read and I said, sorry, you didn't make it, and I stopped doing my job, I wouldn't still be here. So the fact that we're learning that children develop at different rates and need different scaffolds along the way and different ways to show it at the upper grades, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Chavez, always. Oh, we have one person who has raised their hand online. Oh, he's actually a board member. Trustee Hazen, hello.
I am so sorry I'm not there in person with you guys, but driving back from the airport, I just wanted to weigh in. I really appreciate the public comment we've been getting on this item, but I also feel very strongly that the voice from the staff has been very strongly expressed as well. So I think it is important that we focus on the issue and not some of the broader political strings that have been attached to it, because I do feel, as speaking as a parent more than a board member, this concept of meeting kids where they're at will only make our kids better school members and better citizens. Ultimately, we've done away with, a lot of colleges have done away with SATs and standardized testing. I know people are not 100% for that. In my field, we do what's called double blind review because we recognize that there's a bias when you have knowledge about a product of somebody, when even if it's unintended. This is not trying to level a playing field in any balancing way. It's trying to make sure we're meeting people where they're at. So I just want to speak up on behalf of the staff that put this together, and thank you all for doing this tonight. And sorry I can't be with you.
Thank you, Elliot Hazen. And I just want to clarify, you were speaking just now during public comment as a member of the public because you're not here in person, and we don't have any proper agendizing for your location at this time. But I do really appreciate your dedication to contributing to the board meeting. And do we have anyone? Hello, we do have someone here in the queue. Thank you so much.
Almost didn't have to hear from me tonight, but I'm Laura Ligona. I am the government and econ teacher up at the high school. I'm also a member of the ILT, the instructional leadership team that did the study with Dr. Hagquist last year. I think we get very stuck on words. I mean, I teach government, teach AP government. It's a volatile world. And so we have to choose our words carefully. And I think we're kind of losing the picture of what this really is in Pacific Grove. Last year, members of the ILT from all different departments came together, we read the book, and we discussed it at length, but we also implemented pieces to it. We chose what pieces we felt best suited what we were teaching and what our goals as educators are. There are some things that I was like, absolutely not. I don't agree with that. I am acutely aware that the students in my classroom are going to walk across the stage and they are going to enter into the workforce. They're going to enter into job training. They're going to enter into colleges on the entire spectrum, right? I have students who are getting fantastic educations at Monterey Peninsula College. I have students who have gone to Yale and Harvard and the Naval Academy. So I'm very well aware of what they need because this is a competitive world. But I want us to remember that schools, our job is to give the kids the tools and the knowledge so that they can compete. We are not Harvard yet, right? Because not everyone can go there. My own daughter is over at MPC flourishing. But we are there looking at what best allows us to make sure that our students leave that classroom knowledgeable. At the beginning of the year, I always show clips from On the Street with like Jay Leno, right? And they're asking questions about the Constitution and what the stars on the flag mean. And I always tell them, I'm like, the one thing I want to know when you leave this school, if Jay Leno meets you on the street and you cannot answer these questions, I'm going to find you because I want you to know these things, because if you don't, you cannot be the best citizen. And so what we're looking at are what are the things that we can do. In my class, I do retests for quizzes because the tests are going to be all those quiz things. So I want them to see, and I had students who thanked me for that this year. They said, you know, I was stumbling at the beginning, but you let me redo those. It's work for me, but it makes sense. We're using those rubrics because then they can really see it's not just a B on the paper. It's a B on the paper because of this. And next time I'm going to try to work on that particular thing. So in leaving, because I'm on the red, but just know that we're not just looking at these programs and taking them full tilt and saying everything, because we know our students better than anybody else. And so we know what they need and we know what best works for us. So we're taking the things that we think make it equitable, regardless of their economic status, regardless of their race, regardless of their ability. We're looking, what can we do that will make this class a better place and make these kids better citizens?
Thank you, Ms. Cano. Yes, please. Louis, is there anyone online waiting? Okay, great. We've got one more individual here.
That person first.
There's no one there.
Oh,
Yes.
that means no.
Mhm.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Hello, my name's Vince Tuminello. I'm a local Pacific Grove resident and I was a school teacher. I'm retired now, and I want to point out, I heard a lot of word salad. I came in a little later. I was busy earlier this evening. But in my experience, there's a big difference between what we call teaching, learning, experiencing, and grading. And I have kids who I'll never forget this. Martin Spindler, his mother called me up, said, Mr. Tuminello, what's wrong with your grading system? I go, what do you mean? She goes, well, my son, he has Fs in every other class, but he has an A in your class. And she was upset. She wanted to know how I could possibly have done that and what was wrong. Did I make a mistake? I said, Mrs. Spindler, your son does all of his work. He comes to class prepared. He does a nice job and he's educated. He was in C-track, by the way. I doubt he would have ever made it to college, and anyone would have ever evaluated him in a professional or serious manner as to what his grade was. Yet I taught AP classes where it was very competitive, and the kids came to class with their heads down and they wanted to get the highest possible grade so they could get into the best college. And those kids got academic numerical grades based upon how well they did in class, on their tests, on their papers, on their homework, so on and so forth. Well, kids in both classes were learning, and that was what the important thing was. And I felt it was appropriate for a kid like Martin, who was in the C-track, probably never saw an A grade in his life, at least his mother didn't. I don't know if he brought his report card, but I think it's important that we distinguish the difference, and to have an across-the-board system that you're going to apply to all students in all learning situations at all grade levels, I think is a tremendous mistake. Should I have given the advanced kids who were far and above, more intelligent, higher IQs, more successful, and they were going to be more successful? Many of them became doctors and lawyers and businessmen and Army officers and naval officers, all kinds of things. And Martin, he's probably installing awnings, in sunny areas. Nice kid, and he's very happy. He's probably making good money, and he's very happy. So I want to encourage you not to pursue any type of across-the-board equity grading system. Learning is much different than experiencing and much different than grading. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with that, we will close public comment. I'm looking at Lewis and I can tell that he's letting me know that we don't have anyone online. So I'm just closing public comment on this pulled consent item, I should say, item N. We're going to go back to the board one more time around, and then we're going to vote on this item or determine whether or not to perhaps vote on it and postpone it. And actually, Mr. Jordan, let me start with you, because earlier in the discussion, you had mentioned that you would be in favor of bringing it back once you had a moment to kind of do some more research. Is that guidance that you would like us to follow?
No, I was more concerned about the reference to board policy, and if this item and the training was in conflict with board policy. And if that were the case, I would recommend bringing it back.
Okay.
But I don't believe that, looking at board policy 51.
You had a chance to review it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually the one that referenced it when I sent it to the trustees.
Okay. And you do not feel that this is in conflict with board policy?
I don't currently think it is.
Okay. That's important to clarify. Thank you so much. Okay. Trustee Brian Swanson, please.
Well, I'd like to move forward with it. Gosh, I had no idea we would have this amount of commentary on something like this. I have to commend our staff and our teachers in particular, because when I look at this, one of the things that I see is that they're trying to do better, that they're trying to examine how we reach our students. And I think about my own children and the children across the district too, and everybody has a unique path. And I think that that's so much about what we're trying to find here right now, is how do we reach these kids? Because they all have different ways. And yeah, there's a center of the bell curve, and then there are the fringes and people learning in different ways. And I think, we're talking about spending $500 here to just take a peek at what we're going to do and how do we address that and how do we help our students. I don't see anywhere in this item race mentioned one time, not at all. And that drives me batty that has been brought up a couple of times in this conversation. This is not about race. Equity seems to be a trigger word for a lot of people now, and it shouldn't be. It's like we're trying to teach our kids, and how do we do that? And also, education is not a zero-sum game. It is not a contest to who can do better. We want everyone to do the best that they possibly can. And I think that's at the core of what we're talking about here right now. And I want the community and my fellow board members, please listen to what we heard from our staff too. They've looked at this. We have to trust them. They're not just sitting around all day long. You know, they're examining this and they brought this to us for a reason. So I could go on for a long, long time. I'm not going to do that. I think you guys know where I am on this. So thank you.
Thank you, trustee Swanson. Clerk McNary.
I'm ready to move forward with a vote this evening.
Okay. And trustee Otmar.
I'm really glad we all had this discussion. I think it was fruitful. I learned a lot. I would actually love to read that book. So if you would be able to get me a copy, I would be so interested. Oh, thank you very much. I'm ready to move forward with it. I don't want to hinder I don't want to hinder what's happening here because I can hear the passion. I can hear that you guys are all coming from where you should be coming from, which is supporting the students, supporting education. I do have a lot of questions about it. I don't think that having a 2-hour class is going to necessarily move us down a road that is going to be harmful in any way. Yeah. So thank you everybody for contributing and for being so passionate, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Otmar. Okay, I do have one question. Just because you can tell by the discussion tonight, and I appreciate everyone's comments. We can tell by the discussion that there is points that need clarity, right? I think it was Director Rogoman who said it might be one of those things, the more you kind of dig into it, the more questions you may have. That may not feel comfortable for a lot of people, including the public who we represent as elected board members, including families who may be listening, et cetera, et cetera. And so when we have something like that, being in the education, quote unquote business, I will say, it does all of us a service to get a report back after this is done. So if this is voted in favor of by the majority of the board and this takes place tomorrow, I would be in favor as a board member. I'm looking around at the other board members to have a report back. Let us know how it went. Let us know if you're going to implement it at more than one school. Maybe it was something that all of the teachers or majority of the teachers, or, you know, someone who we respect and trust and entrust our kids to every day is not in favor of. We want to hear that. So that's all I ask is a report back after this, if it does go through.
May I
And
ask a quick
yes,
question?
go ahead.
So I am comfortable moving forward with this 2-hour class or lecture. But by no means am I saying that I'm comfortable with a full implementation. I would assume that that's something that would have to come through the board before something like that was done, if we're changing grading and that type of thing.
That's a great question. And some procedural questions did come up tonight in the course of this discussion. You know, are we changing board policy? How do we do that? You know, this, that, or the other. And so that's a great procedural question. Principal Roach, please.
Before it even came to the board, it'd have to go through the staff and it'd have to go through the families. So I can't stress enough how entry level this conversation is, but also how important this conversation is. Status quo ain't helping a bunch of kids, you guys. So if we do not evolve, these kids are not going to do any better. So well before we take it to you guys, we want to hear the staff and how that's happening. We want to see the data to see if it is helping these kids. So
thank you very much.
Thank you. And we do have Rod Garcia on. I have a question for him. So, you know, what is in writing is what we have to go off of, right? So what is in writing? It does say the purpose of this is to implement equitable grading in the classroom. I trust that what we're hearing from the staff is accurate, that this is an exploration exercise. This is, let's investigate. So if we can change that wording, it's maybe change one word on page 63 of the packet at the top where it says purpose. Instead of implementing equitable grading in the classroom, let's call it something that accurately reflects what we're hearing tonight is actually going to take place. Is that possible? And we have them COE rep here. Are you qualified to to give us that guidance, because if we do, we would have a motion that would include that change. So Mr. Garcia?
Sure, yeah, I could change that to, I could change the wording on that.
Okay, and then I want to ask staff or Mr. Jorn, is that accurate? Is that reflective of what's going on?
I would say it is accurate, it's reflective, and if you look at that, which we didn't include in the board packet, the summary of the session overview, the title's Grading for Mastery, Equitable Practices to Support Student Success.
Okay.
So I would think that probably more likely than not should have been the title in the contract, not the title that was on the contract.
And where's that at, so I can say it in the motion?
It's Grading for Mastery, Equitable. It's on the trustee document, and this is the session guidance document that I shared with the trustees prior to the board meeting.
Oh, it's not in the packet?
It's not in the packet.
Okay, then I will
Yeah.
have you repeat that
I
during my
will.
motion, okay?
Yep.
Okay, I'm closing out board conversations at this time. Clerk McNary, did you have something you wanted? Okay, thank you so much. All right, so I'll make a motion that we approve the staff's recommendation on pulled consent item N with the addition of replacing the purpose as it is now on page 63. Right now, it says implementing equitable grading in the classroom. We're going to replace that with
Grading for Mastery, Equitable Practices to Support Student Success.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Motion made by Carolyn Swanson, seconded by trustee Otmar. Can we get a majority vote, please? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you to the members of the public who came tonight. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to, you know what, let's see, it's 8:02. We can either take a break for 5 minutes right now, or we can push on for about another 30 minutes. Board, would you like to take a break now? I'd like 5 minutes too, so. Okay, majority of us, we're gonna be coming back at 8:00, we're gonna come back at 8:10. It's gonna be a 7-minute break. Thank you all so much. We're picking back up with pulled consent item H. Pulled consent item H is ratification of out-of-county or overnight activities. Trustee Otmar, please go ahead.
I had some clarification about that, and I do not need to pull it, so I am happy.
It's already pulled.
Oh, then congratulations to the softball team, and I wish you a great season this year.
Okay. Any other board questions on this item? Questions or
have
comments?
none.
No. Okay, we're gonna go out to the public. Louis, anyone raising their hand to comment on pulled consent item H, which is ratification of out-of-county or overnight activities? Okay, nobody. I don't see anyone here in person making their way up to the podium. So at this time, can we get a motion?
I'll move to approve consent H.
Pulled consent H?
Pulled consent H, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
I'll second.
Oh, thank you so much, Brian. Okay, motion made by trustee Otmar, seconded by trustee Brian Swanson. Can we get a majority vote, please?
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to pulled consent item V, contract with Positive Behavior Supports Corp for 23-24 school year. Trustee Otmar?
So this, of course, is about fingerprinting, and I am comfortable moving this through and then adding, I saw that fingerprinting was on a future agenda item. I would just like to get a date on that. So
Sure. We'll plug a date into that when we hit that part.
perfect. Then I'm comfortable moving.
You're okay with
consent
this?
V through.
Okay, great. Any other board members have any questions or comments about pulled consent item V? No, okay, I see everyone shaking their heads no. Louis, anyone online wishing to speak to this? And this again is a contract with Positive Behavior Supports Corp. Okay, thank you. I don't see anyone in person making their way up to the podium. So at this time, can we get a motion, please?
I move to approve pulled consent V.
And I'll second. So motion made by trustee Otmar, seconded by Carolyn Swanson. Can we get a majority vote, please?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item, which is public hearings. So this is PGTA/PGUSD tentative agreement. This is being recommended by Director Rogaman. And I will let him make his way up to begin the public hearing. I'm actually going to open the public hearing now at 8:13.
Good evening, trustees. This is a public hearing to talk about a tentative agreement between PGUSD and the Pacific Grove Teachers Association. The majority of the negotiated items were settled by the end of last year. There were two things that still needed to be resolved. So we met in May. And you see the result of that in the packet. What we did was we reworked the extra duty stipend language and also adjusted the stipends. One of the things that had been brought to our attention was that last year our stipend payment for extra duty assignments was among the lowest in the region. And so what we've done is we've increased the amount. I think that you can see the bottom line is by about $114,000 overall, which brings us closer to the top. We are a little bit above the middle of the pack now. So that was the major change. Also, there was one item that had repetitive language in the class size item in the contract. And so we rectified that and made that part of the tentative agreement as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Director Rogaman. So we're going to give the public a moment. This is the public hearing portion of this item. So anyone online, please raise your digital hand or come up to the podium. I have a quick question for you, Director Rogaman. On the fiscal impact, it mentions the funds that it's going to affect. So it's Fund 1, General Fund, 11, 12, and 13. Did you just list those because at any point there could be a stipend that comes about that could affect those funds? Or is there, because I didn't really see like a stipend that would, I thought, affect the cafeteria fund at this time. So I was just kind of inferring that.
So while I handled the bulk of the text of that item, I think the budgetary work was done by.
Yes, pass it off, please.
Right. So the fiscal impact for $114,000 was the full impact of the negotiated stipend list if there were all stipends put into place.
Okay.
So they could potentially be affected, or they could be drawn from any one of the various funds. That's why I mentioned the Fund 01, 11, 12.
Just being
13.
thorough.
Yep.
Thank you so much. That was the only question I had. Any board members have questions on this item? Okay, Trustee Otmar does not. Clerk McNary?
No, thank you for all of your work and to the teachers union as well for finishing this out.
Yeah, absolutely. Trustee Brian Swanson?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, we'll go out to public. Lewis, I don't see anyone. Oh, good. We've got a member of the public making their way in person up to the podium.
Hi, Beth Shamos. What this reminds me of is last year when the parents wanted a volleyball class for the freshman girls, I believe. And there was this jockeying back and forth, like, well, can we do it? And so this is kind of gives more clarity to how that could happen. And you're having, if I'm reading this right, like if there's a proposal for a new extra assignment class, which would be a stipend class, that this would have to come forward first before it comes to the board for approval. So just pointing that out, that's what I'm assuming is going to be a result of this.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. All right, we don't have anyone online who would like to comment. I'm closing out that. Oh, please, Director Rogaman, or you're just coming back up in case?
Well, I'm coming back up in case, but also I never want to take for granted the positive relationship that exists within the negotiating room with our PGTA colleagues. And so I just like to publicly recognize just how productive the meeting is. And we truly are working together to make the contract work better, exactly for the kind of thing that Ms. Shamas talked about, that we wanted to put in place a process so that we are sure that any new stipend or change in the stipend amount gets negotiated first before it comes to the board, because that's the proper process. So many thanks to our friends at PGTA for working with us to get that straightened out.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'll mention it. I was not going to mention it, but if there's anyone listening who's interested in being a garden coordinator, we have positions now that are listed and they're one of the new stipends. And would be really exciting to have consistent garden coordinator at all of our sites, making the gardens lovely and helping our kids learn about that. So plug for that position if anyone's interested. With that, I'm going to close out the public hearing unless I have anyone who doesn't want me. No. Okay. All right. So closing it out at 8:18. Thank you all so much. Moving on to action discussion, and this is just part of our procedure. We're going to have the same item now on action discussion, which is the tentative agreement for the board to approve or disapprove. We're going to vote on it now. So board comments or questions, any board comments or questions, I'm just going to look at you guys as a whole. Okay, thank you. We are going to allow for public comment on this item. So again, anyone wanting to do public comment, please come forward. No one online and no one in person is coming forward. So with that, can we get a motion, please? I'll make a motion to approve action discussion item A on staff's recommendation.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Motion made by Carolyn Swanson, seconded by Clerk McNary. Majority vote, please, Mandy.
Aye.
Thank you so much. Moving on to action item B, which is the adoption of resolution number 1110, designating authorized agents to sign school orders. Mr. Jordan, this is your item. Any comments?
No comment, other than the fact that the district does need a second signatory in case there's an issue with the primary, which is myself, and I'm acting in 2 roles. So that's the reason for bringing it forward. And then historically, the Senior Director of Human Resources was also named.
That's a really good point. Yes, you're interim superintendent right now, but you were our assistant superintendent. So you've got a lot of hats that you're wearing, plus a shoulder harness. And we did in past historically, institutionally, we have had the assistant soup and director of HR, and we have incoming director of HR here tonight. So anyways, I'm going to stop talking. That's enough information about that. So any board questions or comments about this item? This is a routine item, I will also add. Okay, any members of the public wanting to comment or question, please raise your digital hand. I will just make a quick comment, I guess. So I was asked about like what safeguards we have in place as a district, right? We've got the board who approves expenditures, but who actually signs the checks and generates the purchase orders on a day-to-day basis, verifies that invoices are accurate, our staff. And a lot of that responsibility comes down to the person signing the check. So as far as safeguards, what safeguards we have to prevent any kind of diabolical situation happening. I mean, we do get audited routinely as a public entity. Anything else you would want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say that we've had 0 audit findings related to that practice in itself. Staff, my staff in the business office and staff from the human resources office develops a lot of the items that move forward for approval by the assistant superintendent, CBO, and the director of human resources. So there's a number of different safeguards in place, meaning that we are not executing these on our own. It's a collaborative effort amongst the staff.
Absolutely. And payroll gets vetted through MCOE. And so we've got actually quite a few safeguards as a government entity in place. Okay. Thank you so much for that information. Lewis, anyone? No, we don't have anyone in public making their way up to the podium. So at this time, can we get a motion? And this is a resolution, so we're going to do a roll call vote ultimately. I'll make a motion to approve on staff's approval.
I'll second.
Who said that? Me, Trustee Otmar? Okay. Motion made by Carolyn Swanson, seconded by Trustee Otmar. Can we get roll call, please? Aye.
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 Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. All right, action item C, contract for services with Santa Clara County Office of Education. This is a Mr. Roach, Principal Roach item. I'm going to ask the board if they have any questions for Mr. Roach, if they would like him to do any presentation or comment on it.
I don't have a presentation. If you would like. Hello again, Sean Roach, principal of Pacific Grove Middle School. And one of the other trainings that we are going to discuss tomorrow is restorative conversations in the classroom, which really involves if I can put it in a nutshell in a very small sentence, it is positive interactions in the classroom. It's taking the punitive nature out of some of the interactions between teachers and their students and turning those into positives, teaching students how to relate in academic conversations with one another in a positive manner. So I don't know, well, hopefully you guys remember some of the stuff that we did last year with intent versus impact and that kind of stuff, which dealt with peer-to-peer relationships outside of the classroom. Now we're bringing it into the classroom so that they can use that academic language in a positive way. They can wait to speak. And instead of focusing on behaviors in a negative way, you use a restorative approach. You highlight the positives. And so that's what this training is about. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Roach. I just have a quick question on the dates. So this is going to take place tomorrow as well. So you have a busy PD day for your
We've
staff?
got an action-packed day tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's as far as I'm going to go on the date question. So any other trustees have questions about this item? Okay, I see the trustees shaking their head no. We are going to allow for public comment as we always do for agenda items. So Lewis, is there anybody? Thank you. And I don't see anyone here in the room either. So with that, thank you so much, Principal Roach. Can we get a motion?
I will move to approve contract for services with Santa Clara County Office of Education, action discussion C.
Thank you for that very thorough motion, Trustee Brian Swanson. Any second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, great. So motion made by Trustee Brian Swanson, seconded by Clerk McNary. Can we get a majority vote, please?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, next is action item D, contract for services with Positive Coaching Alliance. This is a Director Rogaman item. And so I do believe there are questions surrounding this item. So he's already at the podium. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for being so speedy with that. Trustees, Trustee Otmar, any comments or questions about this item?
No, none from me. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Brian Swanson?
Nothing here. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk McNary?
Yes. I read through this item, including the brochure from the Positive Coaching Alliance. Part of the language in the brochure to me is concerning. It on page 155 of our packet. The paragraph talks about coaches are important in developing SEL skills, and then it separates kids by gender for boys. This is done by supporting them to try new things, broaden their horizons, set and manage goals that are important, and build upon their passions. For girls, coaches are most effective by spending time to build relationships and ensure that those young women's voices and opinions matter. They share power. I don't know. I guess my concern is that it's not necessarily in line with when I read our district mission statement and our values. I also wonder if this kind of approach would comply with like state, federal, legal, Title IX. I see it as problematic.
Sure.
Yeah,
Can I speak to it?
sure.
Sure. I think that one of the things that's not clear about the packet
Yeah.
is that portion is stating the findings of a study that was done by the Laureus Group. It says in February of 2021, Laureus USA released the results of a comprehensive study. Okay, so this isn't like embedded in the Positive Coaching Alliance's teaching. It's making the case for youth being involved in sports. And so they were quoting the study, and the study's findings were separated by gender. So they reported out on the studies with the impacts that sports had on boys and also with the impact that sports had on girls. So that portion of the document is talking about what the study found coaches have an impact on. And they separated those impacts by gender for boys and for girls. I'm 100% in agreement. We would never bring to the board a group that was going to separate the sports for the girls' sports and the boys' sports in high school and in middle school and conduct separate trainings as though the aspects of positive coaching are different for boys than they are for girls. Every workshop that PCA does is all inclusive. And in fact, that's one of the main points that they stress is that inclusivity of sports and really trying to provide a positive experience for our students. I know that the trustees have a pretty good idea of my sports background. I coached the high school football team for 8 years here. I coached 6 years at other high schools. I played football in college. I played football, baseball, and basketball growing up. Whatever season it was, I played a sport. And I had coaches in my life that were incredibly positive and left remarkable gold in my soul. I also had coaches that were awful, right? And to this day, standing before you when I'm 56 years old, I've still got scars from coaches that put winning before people instead of putting people before winning. And so what this 3-year commitment with 2 workshops every year is designed to do is to put our coaches in that frame of mind that they want to coach people first and players second. That while we want our teams to compete and do well, that's not going to be nearly as important as the experience that we walk away with. And the Positive Coaching Alliance really is the gold standard in the area around us for doing that kind of coaching. And Trustee McInerney, I understand 100% why that jumped off the page at you. So I contacted Sean Carr-Gascadden, who was our representative from Positive Coaching Alliance, and he's the one that explained to me that those are the findings from a study. It's nothing it's not a message that's going to be given to our coaches that that sports are going to benefit boys and girls in different ways. Honestly, sports benefit individuals in their individual way. And what we want our coaches to realize is that we want our sports programs to bring out the best in the individuals so they're better people when they get done with the sport. That's really what the whole purpose of this training is. I hope that helps answer the question. And I know that it's concerning that it's in the literature, and that's really kind of what sticks in your gut. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I mean, I appreciate the explanation truly, and I hope that that's consistent with the programming. We are given information and it's limited to a brochure, and the brochure cites a study that chooses to cite these findings. I mean, it's basically advertising, like these are things we find important, if nothing else. And I think that's what concerns me about not necessarily being in line with being inclusive for all kids learning all skills. Yeah.
Okay. Sean Carr-Gascadden is here. If you'd like to hear from him, that he can speak to you that as well too. I did my best. But
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. We're going to continue with trustee questions and comments. And we'll get to the guest from the vendor at the end of the trustee questions and comments. So trustee Brian Swanson? No comments. Okay. And Laura, you said you didn't have any, right? Okay. I am in agreement with Clerk McNary. I don't see how there's any reason that should be in this brochure that was chosen to be highlighted from this company. So I can say right now, you know what? I'm going to hear from the representative. So Lewis, do you mind unmuting the individual? Okay. Please state your name and comment accordingly. You have 3 minutes.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Sean Carr-Gascadden. I am the Northern California representative for Positive Coaching Alliance. Yeah, just to reiterate what Buck mentioned, that was purely from a study that was done by the Laureus Group. And the only reason that portion is even in there is a lot of what my role is actually selling the benefits of sports to people like boards or city council members or, different youth leagues. And so literally the portions of that study were shown that here's how sports can benefit youth. Here's how kids can learn. Here's what kids can learn. None of the workshops that we actually do separate by gender. We work with over 1,000 high schools across the country, and our goal is to impact 20 million youth over the next 5 years. So we're very experienced in this. The high schools we work with, we do not separate by gender. We actually have our own gender equity department that comes up with resources on how to, get more girls more involved in sports and increase participation in sports. So our goal is really to make sports equitable for everyone. Our tagline is to ensure that sports are equitable regardless of social and economic circumstances. So I will certainly bring this study to our marketing team, because they're the ones that kind of put our packets together, and bring your thoughts to it, and appreciate you guys bringing it to me, because I've never had someone kind of really dig deep into this material to kind of showcase some of the language that we're using may not be as inclusive as we would like. So I'll pause there. I know it's been a long night for you guys. I'm happy to answer any other questions though.
Thank you. Any public comment on this item, either online or in person? I don't see anyone online, neither does Lewis. Anyone here in person want to say anything? Okay. Principal Roach is on his way.
I've been up here a lot. Good evening, everyone. Sean Roach, principal of Pacific Grove Middle School. I was nowhere near as good a coach, but I did coach football at Monterey High School for 6 years. And I carry some of the same scars that Buck addressed. And this item is really closely akin to the one that came before with restorative practices. It's kind of the athletic version of how to positively deal with students and student athletes. And so I would put this definitely in that same box. To go a step further, unlike a teacher, you really can't evaluate a coach. You're not there writing notes about a coach. And so this is a vital training for them to be able to kick the season off in a positive manner and relating to students the way they need to be related to in a positive manner. Because it's going to be more motivating for them. Thank you.
Looks like we have one more speaker.
Vito Garcia, principal of all the high schools. This impacts particularly Pacific Grove High School. As Director Rogoman stated to all of you, this is the gold standard. And our sports program exists because we are able to have walk-on coaches. We need to be able to provide education and training to our walk-on coaches. They don't have the benefit of being on campus every day and receiving the training that our staff receive. This opportunity will make our athletic program that much stronger. And if our students have more positive experiences, I'm not saying we're broken and we need something fixed, we're going to make something better. If we have more opportunities for our students to have a greater positive experience on the court, in the pool, on the field, we're going to see better results. And I want to win. And this is going to create that opportunity for our coaches and our players. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Garcia. All right, Trustee Otmar, any questions, comments?
No questions, but just a comment. I mean, I thoroughly trust Buck with understanding the social emotional needs of players, and I know your history in this community, and I trust that this is the appropriate thing to do, and I'm on board with this.
Thank you, Trustee Otmar. And I would stake my reputation on this group. I have complete faith in them.
Trustee Brian Swanson?
No questions. Just thank you for bringing it to us. Appreciate it. I think it's a great idea.
Trustee McNary, Clerk McNary.
I am in favor of training for our coaches. I would be interested in looking into a different vendor personally.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, we don't have any more members of the public who would like to speak and we've gone around now to the board as well. Do I have a motion to approve this item, which is action item D, contract for services with Positive Coaching Alliance?
I will so move.
I'll second.
Motion made by trustee Brian Swanson, seconded by trustee Otmar. Majority vote, please.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Nay. Motion does not pass. We have 2 trustees in favor and 2 opposed. Mr. Jorn, what do we do when we have essentially a tie? Excellent. Thank you so much. And we don't have enough of a majority to direct staff in this moment to say to bring a new vendor back, correct? Okay. Thank you so much. Next up, action item E, contract for services with Nucella. This is an item that is Director Rogeman's. I don't know if we necessarily need too much of a description, but board, I'll go to you. Would you like a little bit of a summary from Director Rogeman? No, I'm seeing no. Okay. This is contract for services with Nucella. Board comments and questions. We're going to go around quickly. Trustee Brian Swanson? No?
Good.
Okay. I don't have any questions, comments. Clerk McNary?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Otmar?
I have no questions.
Thank you. And I will say that we did send in questions in advance for this item. We got really good answers back. One of the questions was about if this was the only news source that could be used in schools. And that was my question. I just want to be aware of, I don't want us to be censoring, but I also want us to, realize that we have a certain age. It's a balance that you all deal with. So, the response was really great. And Director Rogeman, if you don't mind just answering that question for anyone listening.
One of the things that we tried to include in the packet, and you can do it on the digital version, but there's a link. And so you can see, the more than 100 news sources that they have, but teachers also have the ability to pull in supplemental content from various sources. What Nucella does is it gives them a reliable, vetted resource that also has lesson plan sparks, they call them, like ideas. Plus, it's also aligned to the adopted curriculum that we have. So for Study Sync, if you're a 7th grade teacher teaching Unit 2, there are supplemental materials grouped by Unit 2. So they're right there for the teacher. So it's really a way to make supplemental materials easier for teachers to find. And there's a good breadth of materials that are there too. However, if a teacher doesn't want to use Nucella, they don't have to,
Great.
and they have other sources they can use.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll go out to the public, see if there's anyone online or in person. I don't see anyone in person making their way up to the podium, and I don't see a notice from Lewis that anyone online is. Mr. Jordan, did you have anything? No, okay, sorry. Okay, with that, we're closing public comment, and we just need a motion to move this forward.
I'll move to approve the contract.
I'll second. Motion made by Clerk McNary, seconded by Carolyn Swanson. Can we get a majority vote, please? Aye. Thank you so much, Director Rogeman. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Next up, action item F, board calendar, future meetings. This one, Josh and I are kind of sharing this one a little bit tonight. We do have a request from Leadership Associates, which is the firm that we hired to conduct our superintendent search. And they, looking at, so on page 166 of the packet, we have on there right now a calendar item that is currently on Thursday, September 28th for a special board meeting, candidate selection superintendent. And Leadership Associates would like us to move that date to October 2nd. They said that will not affect the remaining timeline. It's just a shift within the timeline. And so board, when we go to approve this tonight, I will be making a motion that will include that shift. And hopefully we can all agree on that scheduling item. So as far as the rest of the board calendar goes, I'm going to go around and see if anyone has any questions or comments. So Trustee Otmar.
No, I have nothing.
And are you okay with October 2nd? I should ask.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Brian Swanson.
I'm fine with the bump to October 2. That's fine.
Okay, great. And you have no other questions or comments about, okay. I have nothing further. Clerk McNary.
I am fine with October 2nd and nothing else for today.
Okay, thank you so much. We're gonna go out to public comment. See if anyone wants to comment on our, thank you, Louis, on our board calendar, future meetings. It looks like no one has raised their digital hand and I don't see anyone in person moving their way to the podium. So I'm gonna make a motion that we approve this item with the shift from the special board meeting for candidate selection from September 28th to October 2nd. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Carolyn Swanson, seconded by Clerk McNary. Can we get a majority vote, please, Mandy? Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay. Moving on to the next page of the agenda, although I feel like I missed something, so just 1 second. No, I did not. Okay, information discussion items. Up first is item A, which is the 2022-2023 school year organizational review of PGUSD Human Resources. And we have a representative here from SSC, I believe, moving their way to the podium. Thank you for being here. It's 8:44, and I just want to thank you for staying. Our meeting started more than 2 hours ago, and you're here and you're appear to be energetic to share this information. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, President Swanson, Board of Trustees, Mr. Jorn, district staff, and the school community. It's truly a pleasure to be back here to share the outcome of this report. My name is Danielle Conley from School Services of California, and I'm here with my partner on this project, Ms. Wentworth, who is supporting from the audience. And she is also excited to be here at 8:45 or whatever time it is.
Yes, thank you for Ms. Wentworth
Yes.
as well. Put
Yes.
that on record. We're thankful.
Yes. So what I have for you tonight is a presentation, which we've somehow taken this 100-page report or however many pages are in it. And I have highlighted some of the areas in some slides. And so what I plan to do is go through the presentation and highlight some of the observations and recommendations from our work. And then I want to open it up to any questions that the board has. And I also have the report here that I can refer to because I have not memorized the report. There we go. Yes.
Sorry, I have a quick question for you. The entire report. Tell me about that as far as can the board I would like, as a board member, I would be in favor of reviewing the entire thing. Is it a public document? Is it not public? How do we do that?
Yeah, the board can review the entire document.
Okay, we can. And is it something that will be available to the public or no, because it's?
Yeah, it can be available to the public and they have to, Danielle's here today to disclose the findings of the report
Mhm.
in open session. So we'll have it made available to the public, put on the website if that's the desire of the board.
Okay, so today is the summary of the 100+ page report, correct?
Yes.
Thank you
yes.
so much. Carry
Today's
on.
the summary, and some districts will, after I share this, because this is a work in progress, there's a lot. Some will share it on their website and then perhaps schedule updates from the Human Resources Department in terms of progress in areas of the report. And it's a very public document.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so want to get into the scope first of this project before we move into some of the data and the observations and recommendations. So we embarked on this journey sometime in, I believe it was February. And before I share some of these findings, I want to note that and acknowledge that a lot has changed since we visited in February. However, a lot of these recommendations still apply. So the areas that we were looking at in HR were the organizational structure, the positions within, communication practices, policies and procedures. Specifically, one of the functions we looked at was recruitment, selection, hiring, onboarding processes. And then there was a comparative analysis portion of this work where we looked at selected districts that were similar to Pacific Grove, just to take a look to see how other HR departments were staffed. And I want to note that that doesn't mean that just because they're staffed that way, this is the way that you should staff. It just provides another perspective. If you are looking at making staffing changes, then you have that context there to use. So in terms of this work, it's based on industry standards, best practice, statutory legal compliance. We conducted interviews with district staff from HR, from business services, from school sites, union leaders, and also the customers that the department serves. So you have that internal perspective where you believe things are operating a certain way, and sometimes that's not what customers of the department experience. And so that's a really powerful perspective to gain as you develop analysis and balance that out. In addition, we collected many documents from the Human Resources Department just to look at some of the factual data to develop our analysis. And I just want to emphasize that this review is focused on operations and organizational processes. It is in no way an evaluation of staff. We visited here for 2 days. It was lovely. This is a lovely area and district. You're all very aware of that. I am in no way able to evaluate staff just from those 2 days of visits. The other aspect of this is that it's not an audit. It is certainly not an audit. An audit starts from this deficiency standpoint to really find everything that is not going right or well, or maybe illegal processes or practices that are of concern. This is really focused on operations. So I want to start with some of the key overall observations, and I do not say this every time. This is not my only board meeting, so you can Google me and see. I do not say this every time, but this is a functional HR department. They're functioning. Overall, staff, customers, internal, external, they're appreciative of HR staff's efforts. They're working very, very hard. And they were very welcoming. And when I say that we truly enjoyed our visit, we really did. So everything overall is functioning, but that's not why you called us here, to tell you that everything is going well. We wanted to look at some areas where we could improve, and we certainly found some of those areas. So from the employment perspective, when we think about your recruitment profile, for prior to the pandemic, prior to the pervasive staffing shortage that's plagued this entire state, this district has enjoyed a very positive recruitment profile. You didn't have to try very hard to attract qualified candidates. You had a lot going for you. But what happened here and what's happened throughout the state to similar districts who had your experience is the pandemic came and it transformed the workforce, which magnified the staffing shortage. And what it did to some districts similar to Pacific Grove is it caught you a bit on your heels because you didn't truly have to recruit. Recruiting is actively contacting, reaching out, and targeting certain candidates that you would like to invite to apply. You were able to really put something on EdJoin and things just happened for you. And so that was a significant observation that we made. In terms of the overall organizational structure of HR, it reflects a structure of a small district. And what I mean by that is you have a lot of utility players within the department. Usually in smaller districts, your employees will wear a lot of hats. You're doing a lot of different things and a lot of different areas, which is good because you build that depth of capacity. But what is challenging with that is you're dealing with constant disruptions. You're pulled in many areas, and it's difficult to really gain that specialization in a particular area. In terms of your overall staffing, which I'll get to in a minute in HR, your staffing level is within the comparative group, it's ranked number 1 within the comparative group as we look at the ratio, and that's my next slide. So it's not necessarily the number of FTE that are assigned to FTE. It was the way that they're assigned to the department. And there were some observations of the partial FTE, the partial in this job classification, and then in this, that's really difficult to manage in your day. I don't know about you, but if your assignment was 0.375 FTE, I don't even know. You're the math guy. I am not. I'm HR, but But who knows how many hours in your day that is and how you're supposed to spend that time. So that was certainly something that was a challenge. So this is the comparative staffing table. We just took a snapshot of a summary. Within the report, there's detailed tables with some analysis in each category. In terms of the categories we see here that are going down the left-hand side, executive management staff, those positions are your assistant superintendents, your chief business officials, your cabinet level positions typically. In a smaller district, many times your directors, who are your management staff, will serve in cabinet because that's just a reflection of the size of the district. Supervisory staff, those are working technical transactional managers. They'll be your supervisors, fiscal managers, those folks. And then department staff, these are really your workhorses within a department. These are your technical analysts, specialists. They're the folks who are really keeping the operations going. Some observations for, administrative support staff are clerical in nature, and they typically work in concert with your department staff. So a couple of observations about your staffing. You have just two categories that you're staffing here: management, which is your director, and then your department staff. And you see here where some of the confusion comes in with the 2.4375 and those split assignments that are quite difficult to dissect in terms of where the staff are supposed to be and when, and then what their specific duties are. So you'll see that you are the only district in the comparative group in that department staffing area that staffs at this partial FTE. Okay, so that was a significant observation. Another detail that I want to point out is you are ranked first, but some of the duties within the HR department are not truly HR work. And that's another symptom of small district where we're going to just put everyone where we need them and get the work done, and it's fine, but it should be acknowledged when we talk about HR staffing, because volunteer management, community engagement, those sorts of tasks, they're not truly HR functions. And so what that does is it provides this false sense of FTE that you truly have 3.4375 FTE, but some of those duties in there are receptionist duties. And so I would argue you actually really don't. Okay. So I want to make some more key observations here. So just to summarize what I've already reviewed, you in terms of the staffing table for leadership, I think you're ranked number 4 for leadership. So that's not where you're heavily staffed. You have one director position. And so you're in there along with various other districts. There's 3 other districts who have a higher level of management staffing with actually 2 managers. And there are a couple who provide that executive leadership in terms of an assistant superintendent. Many times in a smaller district, the assistant superintendent will not just oversee HR. Typically, it could be utilized in another functional area, such as enrollment services, student services. Sometimes we see those various hats in different ways. So the analytical and technical functional positions, this is where you're heavily staffed. This is also an area that's very common in our industry, where if we have a problem, we want to solve it with staffing, we're going to add in this staffing area. I do believe at the time of field work, I think a 0.56 FTE position had just recently been added, and that was working its way out as we were visiting. So as I want to note once just one more time, and then I'll be quiet about it, some of the responsibilities are not HR functions. So again, as you're looking at this and thinking about the staffing level, it's important to consider and contemplate that detail. As far as administrative support within the department, you don't have that. You don't have any of that, that area of support. And that's something to definitely think about. And that's also how that district receptionist position is being utilized. And this correlates with some of the external customer experiences where they conveyed, well, we call HR and we can't get a hold of anybody, or, no one answers the phone. Well, because they might be hiring somebody, they might be taking care of something else. And so that's a very important detail to add, that, well, perhaps it could be beneficial to have a position in place that's not just serving human resources, but serving the entire district office in terms of customer service, communication, and in community engagement. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the organization and how common it is to staff positions that have a hybrid function in terms of this utility position that's used for many things, and your organization definitely reflects that. So yours, though, is very significant because you have this partial FTE. And I'll make recommendations later and an org chart in terms of how I had recommended in the report to modify that, to centralize those duties and to help with role clarity, because that's one of the challenges that was noted in the report. Sometimes it's difficult to tell who is responsible for certain duties. And one of those reasons is attributed to the FTE assignment. In terms of the district office receptionist duties, as I noted before, the recommendation is to consider centralizing those responsibilities. And when we get to that functional org chart, there are duties there that include volunteer management, community engagement, supporting other departments, and just providing that coverage and customer service for the district office. It's also a safety detail as well. If one of the school sites needed to get in touch with someone in the district office, they'll have that central position. Somebody is responsible and somebody is monitoring the phones in the case of an emergency. But if we have HR folks who have many other tasks that they need to do, that really pressurizes things. So in terms of the director position, their HR work is a mystery to many. Most folks are not interested in HR until things don't go well in HR. When the outcomes are not what is expected, everybody is very interested in what's happening, and there's often misunderstandings about why it's happening. There's many reasons for that, but there's a lot of hidden work in HR where we go behind closed doors, we got a lot to do, and then things just happen when we open the door. One of those areas when it comes to a management level position is things like complaint management. And this particular position at the time of our visit was inundated with complaint management. And what that does is it pulls the incumbent out of department operations, and department operations are things like recruitment, selection, onboarding, evaluation, supervision, all those things, pulling them away from that. A complaint on a good day can take you 40 hours of work time just to investigate. That doesn't include writing your findings and doing all those things. So it's recommended that the focus of this position be allowed and accommodated to focus more on operations. There's ways you can do that by empowering some of your site level administrators. I know we have some in the room and they might say no, but not everything is a formal complaint, not every problem. So if we build in systems and we train our site leaders and train our supervisors on how to conduct informal inquiries, how to make an assessment when you need to call, when something requires a higher level of attention, that can help alleviate some of these workload stressors. In terms of the specialist and technician positions, as I noted before, what they do, it's directly related to recruitment. So when you think about the core function of a human resources department, the core purpose, its only purpose, it is to attract and retain employees. If you are not doing that, then you're really not functioning. So that is how important those positions are. And because of some of those operational difficulties that I've spoken about, That is leading to some of the workload stressors in terms of bottlenecks within the recruitment process, and some of the difficulties with the selection process as well. So this is the revised organizational chart. And I want to also note that these are recommendations, and it's really a framework. I've visited here. I'm a lady in a suit. I visited, this my third day here. That's it. I'm not here to give directives or say it's this or it won't work. This is a framework for Mr. Jorn to talk to staff, for internal staff to just revisit and take another look at how the department is organized. So on this side here, I just was trying to fit everything on this slide. So on the left side, I did make a recommendation for an executive director of human resources, but you have a director. But I made that distinction because some of the other comparatives had that, and I think that allows for a higher level of oversight in terms of the department leadership. You'll see that I simplified things. There are no partial FTEs here. We have 2 personnel specialists who are operating all within a recruitment focus. That's the first dot under their responsibilities, very specific. We have a district office receptionist. And at the end of the day, with this particular configuration, you drop down to 3 FTE supporting HR functions with a district office receptionist that is supporting the entire central office. So it really takes away the FTE here and there with pockets of work and streamlines things. So that's a major recommendation. In terms of some key observations with procedures, there was no complaint log when I visited. A complaint log is very important to track workload, track timelines, and basically just the operational aspects, procedural aspects, legal compliance details regarding complaints. So we make that recommendation as well. In terms of training, like every school district in California, the district does not have a formal training program, especially for classified staff. But what happens over time is we rely on just the skills and abilities of our staff. And without that formal training, if you continuously get trained by your predecessor, at some point, the environment's going to pull away from you because you're learning things that somebody else taught you. Right. And if they are not in compliance or not current practices, then that's how you get this culture where we don't have that necessarily professional training. So your HR staff have learned by doing, learned by trial and error. And while they're surviving and obviously functioning, that's not really the formal recommendation that we make. So in terms of written standards, we got a lot of documentation with written standards, but they're not very effective if they're not communicated regularly, if your site administrators are not trained on the procedures, and if we don't have standards established. And what I mean by that is you have this procedure and then you tack on, if you submit this request, we are going to process this request in 5 days. Right. And that creates expectations. Principals will stop calling, asking you when you're going to do something, and everyone starts building this trust and this culture of responsiveness. So the department is already using an annual calendar. There were some little details on that in terms of there wasn't an assignment of work. So we recommend they continue to use that, but then assign specific staff. So in terms of complaint management, just to summarize that section, we recommend that the director duties be shifted in the area of complaints to help the position focus on operations. The department should create a procedures document where it's shared electronically and each employee can basically document how they complete their work. And then professional opportunities for all HR staff. There should be a budget for HR professional development, and this plan should be implemented during the evaluation process. So each staff member with their supervisor can select and discuss their training areas for the year. In terms of HR and payroll operations, you may say, why is this here? That wasn't in your scope of work. You are right. But during my visit, I uncovered some stuff that needed to be talked about, especially as it relates to recruitment. So you have some areas where you're bottlenecking in your recruitment. And what this has resulted in is some frustration because some of your new hires, you've lost some of your new hires based on delays in contact, and we can't do that, right? So you've gone through this entire recruitment and selection effort, and then the person took a job somewhere else because they didn't hear from the district. And core and central to that was the hiring procedures with the personnel requisitions, which is the document that communicates essentially through HR and payroll. And so we found some details that we wanted to talk about. So the first area, and this may have changed since my visit, I'm not sure. Mr. Jorn may chime in, but there was 3 forms when I was here. There's a personnel action form, there's the board assignment order, and the golden rod. They each have their different purposes, and they are slowing you down. They are slowing you down because there's too many steps in that process. And you want to think about this in terms of, let's set our goals for our hiring cycles. So if we identify a qualified teacher, we want to hire them within a week, within 2 weeks. We want this to be done, right? You're going to identify all of your steps, and we're going to do all of this within this time. But if you have things bottlenecking because they need to come to the board for consideration, or they need to go through multiple approvers, then we have a problem. So we make a recommendation to streamline all these forms into the personnel action form. Of course, all new hires should be either ratified or approved by the board. If it's an existing position, that means that it's already in the budget. If it's a new position, it should come through as an action item, right? Because it's new to the budget. But there's definitely some areas here where the board can work with administration to try to streamline this to get this to work a little faster. So that was a major recommendation there. We also make a suggestion in terms of your personnel action form process. What we're doing here is we're sending it to essential approvers. You see that new positions have a different path. If it's special funding, if it's a special grant, then the person supervising or monitoring that grant or special funding should be able to approve that first, and then it goes on its way. Now, Mr. Jorn may say, no, business services needs to be first before HR. Fine, but those two can switch as long as it's going through the major areas. So something like this in my former district, we as a cabinet met and we said we're committed to approving our personnel requisitions within 3 business days. So principal request to replace a teacher, that thing is approved within 3 days. We are posting. We are going to post it for 7 days. We are interviewing within 48 hours. After we interview, we're going to make that selection. We're going to do our reference checks, and then we're going to make an offer of employment. So we're moving people through, and it's important to remember that you're not isolated. You are competing with your neighbors. And if your neighbors are hiring faster than you, then you are at a disadvantage. So these things are very important. And I'll share, I used to look at EdJoin. If I had a position coming up, I'd look at my competitors. I knew who they were. They paid better than us. I would look, I would see when they were closing it. I'm closing my position first because I want to get them in before they do, right? So this part is very important in all of this. So just to recap on that, I think that at the time of our visit, the district was in process of starting to look at these forms. I don't know where you are now. So we just said continue the process. The PAFE approval process should reflect accountability and efficiency. And the routing process should include both HR and business. This is a shared responsibility. It requires communication, and it also requires an HR acknowledgement that they are managing the biggest expenditure for this district, which is personnel. they've got to get connected to the budget and its impacts. And so that's critically important in all of this as well. So as far as recruitment, I've talked about the reliance on the good reputation, beautiful area, and all the great things. I've talked about how the pandemic has impacted recruitment. And then we pulled some data, and your data was very interesting. When you look at, and it's all, it's all to scale. So you look at a bigger district, these numbers are in the 200, 300, right? But they have layers upon layers of staff to do this work. If you look at 2021, that's a year we probably all want to forget, but we can see the effects of the pandemic in 2021. Your hiring dropped. You only hired 5 certificated staff that year, but then the emergency COVID resources, your emergency funding resources came, you're coming back to school. Some people didn't come back to work. And you see here that you went from 10 to 34 for classified and 5 to 15 in certificated. And then you're pretty much maintaining a much higher number in 22, 23. And so if you think about HR staff workload impact, it's recruitment. It's recruitment. There could be 27 steps in the hiring process. And so it's very, very intensive. So that was very interesting. Your trends also reflect what we often see, where classified is more volume. Sometimes the part-time employees will turn over faster, and we're hiring them throughout the year, whereas your certificated are more on a cycle that reflects your school year. So the recommendations here is to develop a comprehensive recruitment plan and budget. We've got to do more than just put your jobs on EdJoin. We've got to have some very intentional and specific recruitment efforts. In terms of the hiring process, we would definitely benefit from training our site administrators and our hiring supervisors every year, if not twice a year, on legally compliant and unbiased hiring practices. That's really a legal compliance liability recommendation that I would strongly recommend. There are some hiring barriers that are just operational, and all you have to do is change them. Right? When we think about our recruitment practices and our screening practices, we want to think of every way to invite candidates to apply. But in public schools, we are really good at thinking of every way to screen them out. Oh, you didn't pass this test. Oh, we're doing this. You didn't make it. So really kind of reframing your recruitment plan. You also want to work to build a workforce that reflects your school community. That's really important. And that's built into that, removing those hiring barriers. But again, there's been a lot of work by the HR department in this area. And like was said, right when we opened this meeting, the HR department is working really, really hard and continues to do that. So I just wanted to acknowledge them there. This particular slide, I'm not going to go through every area, but these are just the standard areas that the district would look at when we are thinking about, well, hiring barriers, what does she mean? What should we do? These are some examples. Look at your posting timelines. Those are very important. We want to stay away from open until filled. It doesn't reflect a level of urgency in the hiring, and people just won't apply. And it also almost conveys a sense of desperation, and we definitely don't want to do that as our first advertisement of the job opportunity. In terms of the candidate screening process, if HR is not knowledgeable about that work, include that supervisor who is. Let them in on the screening process. I'll tell you what, I couldn't screen technology candidates to save my life. I'd be calling my technology director to help me out with that. Right. In terms of the interview process, we want it to reflect the position. If it's entry level, let's remove any requirements that don't truly reflect whether or not the candidate can do the job. And then in terms of hiring managers, they're the ones who are responsible for that employee. So empowering them to call the candidate and say, congratulations, I want to let you know that I've selected you for this position and I'm forwarding your name to HR for processing, right? So that really removes that bottlenecking, waiting for HR to become available to do it. And it allows the hiring supervisor to do that. There's also things like contingent offers of employment that Supervisors can certainly issue that basically says, I've selected you, see here, this piece of paper, pending you pass all of our screening, our fingerprint clearance, all those things, you will be hired. So that's something that's very useful in terms of holding candidates so you don't lose them to your neighbors. In terms of the new hire paperwork and information for onboarding a new hire, we recommend that you digitize that completely. And again, this is their first contact. This is a really important part of their experience with the district. So you want to make sure that we're getting in contact with them very quickly once they're hired. And that's one of those standards I talked about earlier. Okay, hiring managers, once you've made that decision to hire, HR will be in contact with that candidate within 24 hours. Something, whatever is reasonable. So just a couple of things in the very back of the report, there's an implementation plan. I said a lot, this feels overwhelming. If you get through one or two, great, right? This is ongoing work in progress. It would be beneficial for Mr. Jordan to work with the HR department and assign some responsibilities to who's going to come up with the procedural template. We have some examples in the report. We actually also provide examples of some legally compliant interview tools. And so making those assignments of responsibility and coming back to report to the board can be incredibly impactful. But through all this, I just want to emphasize this department is functioning, and I'm very appreciative of our work with the HR department, and I'm very grateful for being here tonight to share with you our observations. And with that, I believe I'm ready to take questions if we have any.
Thank you, Danielle Connolly. We'll start with the board as we usually do. So Trustee Brian Swanson, questions, comments?
Well, it's amazing the amount of information that you have been able to compile over the 2-day visit. I mean, it's, and I have to say, going into this, when we were talking about bringing somebody in to do this, I was dubious about it. I was like, I don't know, do we really need to do this? And I'm glad that we did. Again, I don't know exactly where you start with all of it, but it's great just to have it all put together in such a great way. I mean, this is something that I think we could pore over for a long time. I don't know where we start with it, but some great recommendations in here. So appreciate the thoroughness of the report.
Thank you, Trustee Swanson.
Thank you, Clerk McNary.
Thank you for the thorough presentation and all of your work on this. I look at this as giving us a really good baseline and telling us where our starting point is. And as a layperson who's not in HR, it seems like a lot of this is going to be maybe a lot of work up front, but it's going to put into place systems and supports for staff. So like long term, and as we evolve, it's going to be easier for everyone and more streamlined. I don't really have any questions about the report. I guess my question is more kind of the next step in kind of transitioning to staff and what that looks like in terms of a plan, if that's something that we're going to be able to see and then get updates on. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Trustee Otmar.
Thank you for this. It makes sense. When I first looked at this, I was a little overwhelmed at what I was looking at. I mean, it seemed like a lot of information, but you explained it very well and you broke it down very well. It does make sense. I agree that up front, it's probably going to be a fair amount of work, but in the long run, I can see how this would really streamline things and be more effective. I am interested in hearing next steps. I know you had talked about Josh maybe coming up with a template initially. I don't know how much work that's going to be. You're like 12 hats right now. So, and what the timeline looks like for actually beginning this process.
Thank you. One of the things that really stuck out to me was the last slide that says that the recommendations in this analysis do not apply in isolation. They interact with each other on various levels, and in order for particular recommendations to be successfully implemented, certain modifications must also be in place with fidelity. So it was, I mean, to me, that's like, okay, we need to try to do as much of this as possible. That what we do when we do it is up to staff. As a board, we can direct you to say this sounds good and please make us a plan and bring it back in 60 days or 90 days or whatever. I don't know what's the industry, what does the industry recommend? You know, none of I'm not an HR professional. I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but we do want to balance the load. I think that and from your field work, it sounds like we may have a staff that's at capacity or feeling beyond capacity. So I also want to respect that and all the work and the time that they've put in so far. So Mr. Jorn, when can we see a plan on this? And one last comment is, can you try to implement all of this and then just come back to us and tell us which ones are not possible for PGUSD?
I would just say this, it's not a mountain to tackle. And there are definitely things that we've been doing to streamline processes and workflows since Danielle and Teddy were here with us however many months ago.
Yeah.
The path was one thing, you know, path, goldenrod, and assignment order. That's something we've been talking about ad nauseum. So there are many things that we're putting in place right now to more streamline and kind of have a more linear approach to workflow. And bringing Claudia on, she has 16 years and a wealth of knowledge and experience in a district that has had many moving parts over the years. So we're very happy to have her. We've had many discussions about this with her and Billy prior to Billy in retirement. So I would just say this, the train is on the tracks. We're already moving forward. Do we have a formalized plan that we have developed yet? No, but we already knew what some of the areas we needed to focus on were based on the interviews that were conducted here with school services. And we began to address those months ago.
Would 60 days feel comfortable for you to bring us back a plan, 90 days?
Yeah, I would suggest we look more at a mid-year. We're onboarding new staff right now.
Okay.
I think that Claudia and I have a lot to do here. Again, this is not a mountain to conquer, I don't believe. I think that bringing maybe a structured plan back to the board sometime in the fall would make sense with a timeline associated with that to carry out through the end of the fiscal year. Like
maybe November, December, or even dare we say January, because of the holiday, those months just fly by. We're almost in holiday season as it is. So
yeah, I would like to have a more formalized plan and approach in place by November or December for implementation starting January 1. You know, we more likely than not will not accomplish everything by the end of the fiscal year, but we'll have a timeline established.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I don't expect you to be implementing all this by the end of the year. I just want the board to hear what the plan is by the end of the year.
Yeah, we'll definitely have that. And I mean, there are many things that were brought up during this report that kind of hit home with me as well, just coming from another LEA and how that LEA did things and how this LEA did things differently, not incorrectly, but just different. And I'm more of a linear thinker, as you all know. So I'd like to streamline, as I mentioned, the processes. We have a great team, and you're right. I believe that there's an overwhelming amount of work for the amount of staff that we have in this office. I think that that's not said enough. But you know, we're doing quite a lot with limited amount of resources. And there are many things we can do right now that will help us streamline our process with the current staff we have in place before we potentially restructure. But yes, we can bring a plan forward to the board, let's just say by December for implementation, and then we'll work on a structured,
And as far as SSC goes, is this something that SSC, would you want to retain their services further for the implementation or development of the plan to kind of help you out in this situation, or are we good? And like, I don't know how it works. Are we good with the review and we say thank you, goodbye?
I think that we have a professional network that we work with each other early and often when there's issues that arise, and we'll continue to tap into that network. I don't think there's a reason to retain school services to help us with implementation. I think we know what we need to do. We need to structure it, come up with a timeline, and then we can bounce some of the ideas off of the group if need be.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the summary. Thank you both for coming and having it all for us. It's 9:26, so I am going to see if there's any public comment. Staff comment, anybody who's in the members of the public would like to comment. got somebody in person making their way up to the podium, so you get first dibs on speaking.
Okay, Beth Shamas. You know, your HR department is really the first contact that new people have with our district. And so it's so important how that comes across. And I was glad to hear that there was an emphasis on speediness of replies to people. But the one thing that I find, and I don't know about our HR department, but other ones that I've dealt with, is when you apply for a job and you're told that they'll make a decision at such a point in time and they'll notify you. If you don't get the job, they don't notify you. Or what they do is send a letter maybe 5 weeks later. So that's something I think we should always be aware of, because again, I mean, we probably get so many very qualified people. We had to choose one. Maybe there was somebody there that we hope we can choose again. We got to leave a good impression with that person. So as much as I like the speediness, I would also want to encourage that HR take into consideration the people that didn't get the job and make sure that we are continuing to, you know, reach out to them or give them some kind of positive feedback.
Thank you, Beth Shamas. And actually, that's such a, I agree as a trustee that that's a point. So is that on your radar, Mr. Jordan and Claudia? Yes. Director Ariano, I should say. Thank you so much. Okay, Louis, anyone online wishing to comment? Thank you. No one online is wishing to comment. Board, we'll go back around. Trustee Otmar? Anything?
No, I have nothing else. Thank
Okay,
you.
Clerk McNary?
No.
Brian Swanson? Okay, this is an info item. So we, besides the direction of coming back in December with a plan, that's all we have when we don't need to vote on this. So thank you all. Thank you for coming. Feel free to exit now. You will not disrupt us and we really appreciate. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, information discussion item B, which will be a quick one, and then we can get to our one I'm really excited about is the summer projects with Director Anderson. So review of legal fees. This is an information item that comes up regularly. It's a review of not even, I should say, a review. It's a spreadsheet of what we spent so far on legal fees and costs. Joshua Jordan, do you have anything to add?
No, just other than the fact that the 2021-22 actuals versus 22-23 actuals went down. So even though we had a number of different issues related to legal and legal fees, the reduction by $7,692 did occur over the course of the past 2 years.
Oh,
So
thank you.
we've trended downward.
That's good. Thank you so much. So Clerk McNary, any questions, comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, Trustee Otmar? Nothing. Trustee Brian?
Nothing, thanks.
Okay, I don't have anything either. We'll go out to the public and see. Principal Garcia, you're just standing. Okay. And no one, Lewis has let me know no one online is waiting to speak either. So we'll close up public comment and I don't have any direction unless another trustee does for Mr. Jordan. All right. Thank you for that item. Next item, a very exciting item, information item C, summer projects presentation. While Director Anderson makes his way up to the podium, I will say that we had a really great post on our PGUSD website that included pictures of some of our summer projects. So I'm sure we're going to hear more thoroughly about that now, but thank you for communicating that out to the public. And from my understanding, some were measure A, some were measure D, some weren't. You were just being really thorough and telling the community, hey, these are the things we're working on. So I thought that was really super cool. Please continue that.
Good evening, board, ladies and gentlemen, public. Very happy to be here tonight. I think my presentation is going to be a little bit different than you might expect, but I hope it's well received. So I'd have to say that I've been here 13 months now. It's pretty exciting. I'd say we went from the pandemic to now the storm-demic, and that's what I started under. And so I think we're probably going to talk a little bit about that in this. It actually had quite a bearing on what has happened. So I want to talk about a little bit about the success of what has happened over the summer. I've had quite a few people stop me recently and say, John, I can't believe what you've done. You know, I like what you've done. And what I want to communicate tonight, that I'm just the guy that holds the baton, and it's really about our success. And there's a lot of reasons behind that success. And so, yes, it is the maintenance, operation, and transportation department staff, but it's also the contractors that were the winning bidders. One of the contractors negotiated with us, and we got some savings from that, and we're able to do more. So we really appreciate that contractor for doing that. I think it's also about the PGUSD support structure that we have as well. The district office played a very important role in this. So is the site staff at each one of the locations, and of course our citizens by providing the bond monies. If we don't thank them, we're not really doing our job. Without them, none of this would have happened. So I want to talk about our site staff, the custodial staff. I think, you know, we need to see the faces of these people. So there's one missing. He actually broke his finger, so he was off work during the, you know, picture taking time. But we have our Forest Grove Elementary, got Oscar there. Over at Pacific Grove Adult Education, we have Renee and Nina. Robert Down, we have Thomas, Andrew Terry, and Eddie. Pacific Grove, we have you know, Greg and all of our guys there, and Pacific Grove as well, at the high school and community high. And we just have just a plethora of all these custodians, and they don't just come to work every day. During the summer, it's not vacation time, it's deep cleaning time. And so they're polishing floors, they're dusting, they're cleaning windows, they're going and doing all those kind of cleanings that they can't do while the students are there. And we have to do this stuff during the summer. And it's been particularly a little bit of a problem for the folks at Pacific Grove High School and Forest Grove, because there's been so much going on there. We've created so much extra dust and dirt for them, and so much. So I really thank them for their patience. We also put a new roof on at Robert Down, and had a year-long, summer-long program there with the work with the city. And so our poor custodial staff there had to do all their cleaning on top of dealing with all of that. So I think it's important that we note the extra efforts that they went through. Okay. Our grounds crew. So we now have 3 grounds crew. For a long time, Shay, the guy on the right, it was pretty much the solo act for Shay for quite a while. But now we have Efren's back full time, and we have Jaron, who's been added to the pot. And these 3 gentlemen have not just, you know, gone around and have just done their regular work during the summer. This is where the storm comes in. We had 62 trees go down during the storm season. I'm sure that's probably a record for Pacific Grove Unified. And so it's a case that when school starts, our campuses don't look their greatest right now. I'm just going to be honest. And we need to give these guys a little bit of slack, because I made a decision to file the FEMA claim to try to recoup some of the money that we've spent on all these trees. It's added to my plate a whole bunch of paperwork and a whole bunch of meetings. But mostly what it's added to these poor gentlemen is they've had to go after those 62 trees because FEMA gives me a deadline. I've got to get the work done and get the monies that we've expended on it demonstrated to them so that we could recoup the money. So while we might have a couple of high weeds here and there, and some places don't look as great as I'd like them to look for the opening of school, the important part is that most of those trees are gone now. They've been chipped up, cut up, and the debris has been placed everywhere, but you know, where kids are going to integrate them. Okay, our driver and utility team. So they drive buses all school long. And when summer hits, they do everything. Melissa's been working on painting and doing things to helping to flip the TK. She's done some projects where we've taken dirt out and we've put some wood chips in. I've repurposed the wood chips from those trees that went down. When they had those wood chips, when the trees were shredded, you're now going to see those start showing up in planted areas. Reuse and recycle. Greg has been not only just cleaning buses and delivering things to the custodians to keep them working, he's also been our gopher to go out and get stuff for the guys, and he's run the tractor for us a few times, helping with the tree cleanup. And Wendy has been instrumental in picking up everything else in between that the other 2 didn't do. Then we have our maintenance crew, and almost every in-house project we've done, these four have been involved in it up to their eyeballs, or up to their waist in the pool. We did a major cleanup and shutdown of the pool. We went over all the boilers again. We installed 12 new lights. Yeah, we did an actual drain down to the pool to replace some of the water again. And we actually physically, they went and walked around and they scrubbed the pool. So with brushes. So the pool's looking better than it ever has again this year. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about Measure D. And this looks confusing. It looks like there's a lot there. And I actually tried to make this slide look that way to show you just how much was going on. And this doesn't quite cover it all. But you can see there's a lot that happened at Pacific Grove High School. We had our fluid applied roofing system applied to buildings A, B, C, D, and M. That's 5 buildings in 1 year, in just a 2-month period. So this is a major improvement. I don't think 5 roofs have probably ever been re-roofed in one campus in the summer. Those same buildings had exterior painting, and they have gutters without gaping holes in them, probably for the first time in 10 years. We put new luxury vinyl plank flooring in the band room. That was one of our old 9x9 tile floorings that are left remaining. So I had that abated and new flooring put in. It's almost finished. We're getting really close. They're supposed to be here tomorrow to finish up so we could reset the room. We're putting new abrasive walk-off mats in the library. The library has a lot of traffic that goes through there. And with the abrasive walk-off mats are going to replace this old vinyl that was torn at the entryways. And the abrasive walk-off mats, just the action of walking across the mat wipes the kids' feet. So it's going to keep things from getting tracked through the library. It hasn't started yet. It's scheduled. It's probably hopefully before a baseball game comes up, we're having the varsity baseball field fencing replaced and the backstop reworked a little bit to make it more regulation. We're right now in the midst of a major sewer line repair there. The K&L wing sewer line has been damaged since the middle of the year, and we couldn't really dig it up in the middle of school season. So that's happening. Work began on that on Tuesday. So hopefully it'll be done soon. And of course, all the new locks and keys are installed at the campus. Pacific Grove Adult, there's actually going to be a sewer line repair that occurs there next week because they'll be closed for a week. So we still consider that a summer project. Of course, Robert Down, we got the new shingle roof portion of the building replaced. That was leaking everywhere. So knock on wood, that won't be leaking this coming year. And then the rain gutters were copper rain gutters. So we decided to keep them because they're quite valuable. And so those are just getting cleaned and sealed. And of course, the locks and keys are now installed in that building as well. David Avenue, we spent probably about $6,000 on clearing the sewer there last year. And multiple times with sewer backups, all located in their main bathroom they use at the David Avenue campus. We located the problem. It was dug up and repaired. It is now finished. So again, knock on wood, we won't have spent $6,000 this year on cleaning the line there. We're getting a couple broken windows replaced, and there's a sink waste line that is corroded, and that's getting repaired as well, where we basically have to cut into the side of the building to do that. Pacific Grove Middle School, the new rain gutters, they're scheduled for Monday. So hopefully they will be done before school starts, and the new locks and keys are installed there as well. Forest Grove Elementary, again, the fluid applied roof system to building A, G, and K. We really wanted to go after the G building because it had some pretty significant wood rot issues and things going on there. And it's one of the, A is the biggest building on campus. So exterior paint to those 3 buildings as well. And the new rain gutters, it's supposed to be finished complete tomorrow. We'll do a final walk there as well. We put new luxury vinyl plank flooring in the BASRP room. It's my understanding the carpet in that room might be as old as 50 years. So kind of nice to get rid of 50-year-old carpet. And then this weekend, we'll be sealing and restriping the drop-off horseshoe there. So pretty excited about that. Other projects. So this is what the in-house crews did. This is what the maintenance crews and everybody else pitched in to do. And a couple of them were contractor driven too. At Forest Grove, room A, which is actually behind the BSARP room, it made sense. We went ahead and put that same flooring in there. I worked with the guys in tech for the new E3 flex room, and we put a new low VOC carpet in there, which is really important for the kids. So this is since the kids are going to get on the floor and work with that carpet and be all over it, I didn't want it to be a typical carpeting. So I'm kind of making this our new standard carpet. It's a low VOC. It's really good for the kids. They're not breathing in a bunch of those volatile organic compounds. Right near the demonstration garden that we did out here, right in front of the admin area, right when you walk in the gate at Forest Grove, we're doing a version of that there. It should be complete tomorrow. Okay. Again, major classroom deep cleaning, major storm debris removal. That was one of the hardest hit areas. I've got one little patch of tree limbs in the back that face the condos that needs to be cut up and will be finished on that campus. A lot of tree removal there. And then we have 2 bottle fillers that came in the other day, but we're waiting for parts to be able to install them. It's frustrating. It's still with the pandemic stuff. It's still hard to get some parts. So parts we ordered weeks ago have not arrived. So we actually have the bottle fillers. We just don't have the part to install them, which is a very specialized P-trap. Let me see. So Pacific Grove Middle School. This is a success story. So the ramps to the modular buildings were quite rusted. They were deplorable. They were not safe, and they needed to be replaced. And during the graduation ceremony, we had our Janie was graduating, and she's our student in a wheelchair. And we could not find a wheelchair ramp anywhere to rent. And so I approached Joshua Jorn and I said, Josh, we need to buy ramps for the modular buildings. Would you allow me to buy them early so that I could use those to get Janie on the stage? And so Josh approved an early purchase. We purchased the ramps. We used one to get Janie on the stage. And now that same ramp is installed in the modular. So we got to use it twice, and I didn't have to pay a rental fee. So it was a win. And then the old wood shop at the middle school is now 90% complete, is being emptied. It took about 5 dumpsters full of stuff to get rid of the debris that had collected in there over the year. And none of this was anything that we could repurpose or reuse or sell. It was just basically stuff. And so it's finally out, and that place is now getting to get repaired and ready for classroom use. And again, the custodial staff doing deep cleaning there. Robert Down, the old co-op preschool has been converted to a new TK classroom. It's very close to completion. It will be ready for school. It's actually ready to use now, but we want to make it a little bit nicer before we're done. Deep cleaning throughout the campus at Robert Down. And again, 2 new bottle fillers will be installed there as soon as we get the other parts that we need. So Pacific Grove High School and CHS, there we have new fume hoods that are they're about 75% installed. The parts that we need for those just arrived today. So we'll be picking that up and getting those done, hopefully before class starts. Again, the major pool maintenance, the sewer line repair that's going on there. And then the adult school. So the 2 play structures that were damaged are in process of getting installed right now. They literally, like the last one arrived last week, and the other one the parts came all the way from Denmark. So again, just waiting on parts. And again, major storm cleanup at that campus as well. So a couple photographs to show you. Again, not everything's complete yet. I wish I had finished photographs. So these are basically photographs in progress. So the center picture is that new floor at the band room, the music room, if you will. And then some colors of our, pictures of our new paint scheme and the new white liquid applied roofs. The nice thing about those roofs, they're Title 24 roofs, so they're going to do some energy savings for us. They are basically a lifetime renewable warranty roof. So every 10 years we could have them spray coated, and that'll keep the warranty going on those. And the paint colors are essentially the same colors, only just slightly brighter. And what I've done to standardize is we went to the fan deck of our paint supplier, and we picked a standard color that was close to the original color. So that way, anytime we have to do color matches or touch-ups, it won't be a custom color anymore. I'm trying to do that everywhere we go. Here's those wonderful ramps that we reused at the middle school. And you can see those are going to be a lot nicer and safer for the kids. The other ones were they were ferrous metal, so they were rusting probably from the first day they were installed. On the right is the old wood shop. It literally used to not be able to see the floor. These tables that are staged in there now, they'll be getting those ready for the kids to use. So we're just going to clean the floor before they start using it. Forest Grove, it is remarkably changed. It doesn't even feel like the same school anymore. Again, we went to, you're going to love the color. The color is called Curious Chipmunk. And so it just, to me, goes well with the school. It's our little Curious Chipmunks. So one of the projects, like if you see the sign, the Forest Grove sign, we water blasted that, sealed it, touched up the white a little bit. And then again, it was quite a bit of, just dead foliage and a couple of flowers coming up around that's repurposing some of the wood chips there. Again, that was Melissa, a bus driver, and Cliff. They dug all that out because our grounds crew was so busy with other things. That's the BARSRP room with that's the luxury vinyl plank flooring. That's a mouthful. What's beautiful about this product, again, it's a low VOC product. It's very durable, should last 30 years in this environment. And what's nice about it, if you scratch it, the color it goes through it, for several millimeters. So it's gonna do well with wear and tear. And the reason I'm picking this floor and having this type of floor installed in many places is because foods and things, it's easy for it to just get dust mopped and wiped up. It's not carpet to clean. And Josh actually was installing this at MCOE before he left there. So we think alike. And the reason I have pictures of trees over here on the left is I used some year-end money to take care of some trees over by Area G, the building G. And then I used some of my startup money for this fiscal year to take care of some more trees over there because there's some very suspect trees there, a couple of dead ones. And so if you walk on that side of G now, I think we're going to feel a lot safer for our students and not have to pull kids out of class when we have storms this coming year. And then Robert Down, nice, beautiful roof. Again, this is a Title 24 roof, so it's going to be reflective. We had a lot of solar gain, especially on the west side of the building, where some of those, when we would have a sunny day, since there's no air conditioning in that building, we'd have some very intolerable temperatures of 85, 90 degrees in the building. This should go a long way to help that. One of the other things, if you look up in the right, you'll see there's a couple little squares up in that photograph, and those are actually venting for the roof. This roof has never been up to code. It was never vented. So when I wrote the spec to bring it up to code. So that is now a vented roof. That's also going to help because the heat will not build up in the attic space. It's got a place to get out now. And so the other picture on the left, that is the TK room over there that used to be the former co-op preschool. And that floor, believe it or not, that beautiful shiny floor, Eddie polished the heck out of that thing. It was almost to the point where we should have replaced it, but we didn't have the time or the money. So Eddie went above and beyond, and I mean, you wouldn't know that's not a new floor right now. So again, kudos to our custodial staff. These are those playgrounds at the Pacific Grove Adult Education. The one on the lower left was completely obliterated. It is now functional again. And the one on the right is in process. And what's going to have to happen there is you can see that's all the ground is compacted around there. They're going to come back in and put that rubber matting in rather than the wood chips and fill. So it's going to be great for the kids. I want to end with a special thanks to you, board, for approving my plan last year to redo all this stuff. You made all this possible by saying, yes, go for it. I appreciate that. I appreciate Josh and all his support. I come to him with things, can I do this? And he says, yes, almost every time. The entire district office staff has been supportive of me. I went without an assistant for a while, and everybody picked up the slack to help me keep moving. I really appreciate that. And I have to say that everybody chipped in. Again, the entire district office and the site staff, principals and their secretaries. The site secretaries are very supportive. They help me with work orders and everything else. And they're very communicative of getting me information as I need it. And then I finally do have an administrative assistant now, and that's Desiree. And she has been wonderful in helping me get my budget back together and able to move forward. So thank you all. And do you have any questions?
Thank you. So just timing wise, it's 9:52. I do hope that we'll get done tonight by 10 o'clock, but I also don't want to squelch any questions or comments that are going to come in. So we'll start with Clerk McNary. Anything?
No questions. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to you and your staff and everyone who has contributed to the work. Thank you for showing us the faces of the people who are working so hard. I feel like that's something we don't really get to see. And as a parent, you kind of don't get to see because a lot of that work goes on behind the scenes and when the kids are not at school. So I appreciate being able to know who works for the district and who works so hard to make things great for our kids.
I'm nothing without them, and I hope they all get a break soon because
Right.
they didn't take much time off during the summer. They all worked very hard to make this a reality.
It shows. Thank you.
Trustee Otmar?
I don't have any questions, but that was a really cool presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and your entire crew for all of that. I mean, I would love to just walk around every site and take a tour just to soak it all in.
Wait about 3 days and do that.
We actually do have an item on our next item that will be just that. So
I'm excited.
I'm looking forward to
It's
that.
epic. This is epic stuff. Thank you.
Trustee Brian?
Just great presentation. Thank you. And to your whole crew, it's like just the other day in particular, I remember driving by Robert Down too. And I didn't know about the new roof, but then I saw it. It's like, oh my God, it looks amazing. Robert Down in particular, the transformation with the new paint earlier and the roof, but every site, everything is looking really fantastic. So appreciate the hard work, especially over the summer when people are taking vacations. And I know that's when you don't get to do that.
I will now.
Yeah. Thank you. Any members of the public wishing to say anything? We are definitely all grateful for. It's just really cool to see. Thank you. These are like high visually impact items. So I know that you've been doing many other things in previous years, but this year in particular is really visually impactful for so many. So thank you. Lewis? Okay, nobody on Lewis's end of things, and I don't see any staff members, although I'm sure they're all very thankful as well. So I'll close out public comment. I don't have any direction. Board members, do you have any direction? No. I will just make a quick comment. We did experience in our district a situation where we had a very big back order of a backlog of work orders. And I'm just assuming that at this time, they have like a reasonable turnaround time and everything is going okay with work orders in general. Is that a pretty safe assumption? I know it's kind of a.
Speak to that.
Yeah.
So we did have a little issue with Facilitron where we actually finished work orders and closed them. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, those same work orders that were closed will all of a sudden just pop up out of the blue. So we're working with Facilitron to make that go away. Just a few weeks ago, I went through and made sure and closed a bunch of work orders that were lingering that I know were finished.
Okay.
And I worked with the guys and, confirmed they were done. And sure enough, some of them popped back up. And so we're maintaining it usually it's about 2 to 3 pages worth of work orders that we have, on a log. And it's been kicking back, and all of a sudden I'll just walk into work one day and there'll be 6 pages, and it's not new work, it's old work.
Oh gosh, how
So
frustrating.
part of that is the frustration is that there's an issue, but Facilitron's working with us to take care of that.
Great.
Okay.
Wow. One more thing to kind of wait on the phone for, but thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Next is our future agenda items item. We do have several things listed here, which Mr. Jordan and I and Clerk McNary will work on at our agenda meetings to get those placed on future agendas. The only one I had was the Equine Healing Collaborative, which I believe Mr. Jordan is working on. Yolanda Corky-Anthony maybe is working on. I'm seeing the eyeballs go back and forth.
Yeah, I connected Yolanda with them.
Okay.
We'll bring it back.
Okay, so that's great. That's the only thing I had. So Trustee Brian, anything?
No.
Thank you. Trustee Otmar?
No, I see my fingerprinting on there, so.
Yes, it is on there.
Sooner the better.
Okay, noted.
Thank you.
And site visits, very exciting. Clerk McNary, anything that's not on there that you wish? Okay, any members of the public wishing to get an agenda item on our radar, you can either comment now or you can use the online submission form. That's pretty easy to find. Let us know if you can't find it, but it is there for anyone who would like to submit. So any public comment, Lewis, anybody out there? Okay, no one wishing to comment in the digital realm, and I don't see anyone here in public working their way up to the podium. So with that last item, I'm going to close that out and adjourn the meeting. It is 9:57.